All right. So it is Wednesday, September 14th, and 4 minutes to the power hour. We're looking at NQ. These are Renko bars with a combination of the Trade and Perform algo, which looks like this, from Simon and the Trade and Perform room. I've taken those signals, the ones I like, and then such as the stars, for instance, and then the green and the orange bars and the lines here, which we call the radar. And then I've added a couple of my own as well, some of which I'm still testing and don't actually use to set up trades at the time. Then I've left some of the signals out that I just don't find I use that much. And so we can see if we can find a trade. Now, I am working, we just had a, Apex just had a sale on their prop account evaluation. So I picked up a handful of those. I've got, I think, 6 new accounts that I'm trying to qualify. So what I'm trying to do for those accounts, these accounts can take up to, I believe it's, some of them are 2 minis and some of them are up to 10 minis. But I believe even the majority of them are 2 mini and 4 mini contracts is the max amount of contracts I can run. Interestingly, in both those accounts, you can only run 20 micros or 2 or 4 minis. So for right now, what I'm doing to try to build these accounts without blowing them is I'm starting with 8 micros and I'm taking only the highest odds trade setups that I know. And I'm focusing on those. And if they give me an opportunity to add to the trade, which is sometimes called campaigning at a level, right? So let's say like, this is a good example. So let's say this is a trade signal here where we had a lift, came back, traded underneath, and then what we call trapped back in and got a signal, the star. So that would be an entry here. And then when this pulls back into here, but it can't get below this point of control, which is this dash, I can actually buy more here. So basically I'm campaigning for this area here. Anything in there I can add to. So I end up getting 16 micros for that trade long. And then what I'm doing for this, see, there's a trailing drawdown on these accounts, right? Which basically means, let me just see if I can, hold on, we might have a trade here. Let's just see if this sets up. If it's got to be a green bar or a star to the upside for this to be a long. It's a little bit shaky, but it's technically a long, so we'll take it. If it prints, we have to wait till it prints and see if it gives us a signal. So just hold on a second. I'll exploit the trailing drawdown. It might not print, in which case that's nothing. We got to wait until this actually closes, either at this green dash or this red dash. If it closes at the red dash, there's nothing to do. If it closes at the green dash, we might be able to get 10 points here. But the trailing drawdown, the way this works, it doesn't look like it's going to print. I'll go signal even if it does close. If it does, I'll click it. But the trailing drawdown basically means that as you make money in the account, the amount of money that you can lose decreases, right? So the profit target for these, like the smallest ones, I think the profit target's like $1,500 without losing $1,500. And then my bigger one, it's like profit target 5,000 without losing 3,500 or something. Yeah, they're all different because I've got a couple different sizes. They were all cheap, so I just got a bunch of them. It might turn green here. Hold on, we might get a trade. It would need to close at the high there. At 12,146.25 is where my limit order or my stop order would go to enter the trade. So if it gets there, it'll trigger me in. But if it doesn't, then it won't.
Order filled.
All right, so we get in. Now our stop needs to go down here. And this could just stop out right away, right? So it needs to be, it's about a 15-point stop. It's at 15, 16-point stop. We're going to put it at 31. Just a little bit on it. Reasonably, you really don't need to go any lower than this. If this breaks, right, if this swing low breaks, it's probably going to print one more bar to the downside. It might turn around and we'd have to re-enter, which is always a little tricky. So because of this trailing drawdown, but my stop just stays there, right? Because of this trailing drawdown, it's very important that we don't give back profits, right? If our trade is working, we need to get paid. But I also need to hit a profit target before blowing up the account. So it's also important that like we're very selective about which trades we're gonna take. But rather than trying to get really big stretches What I'm actually focused on is to try to get 10 to 12 points and then exit the position. Unless I've added to the position, then I might hold a couple runners. But the very worst thing you can do with these trailing drawdowns is have a really good trade that works a lot for 15 points, let's say, which is how a lot of the trade and perform setups are. They might work 70% of the time if you're only targeting 12 points or 15 points. But nothing works super often to get you 50 plus points. It might work 50% of the time, but you're not going to find something that gets you, 100 points 70% of the time. That's just not a thing. Like, if it is a thing, it doesn't happen very often, right? I shouldn't say it's not a thing. It's just, you'd be really bored and you might not get any trades at all if you were that limited. So rather than trying to get 50-point runs, I am targeting literally just 10 points. And I'm going to take all but like 2 contracts out of this trade automatically. I've got bracket orders that set up that automatically exit me if I can get 10, either 10 or 12 points. I forget which one I've got right now, but 10 points is a good start, right? If I know I get 12 to 15 points 70% of the time, taking 10 points off, taking most of my trade off at 10 points profit, and just doing that every day is going to qualify these accounts as long as your win rate's high, which it is, right? Because I'm selective with where I'm trying to scalp. But because I'm just looking for 10 points, it kind of means it doesn't matter where I'm trading as far as like on the chart. I obviously don't want to get involved if I'm going the wrong direction, right? But you don't need... All right, so we got stopped, and that's fine. You don't need like major inflection points. If it trots back in, I need to take it again, unfortunately. I'm sort of hoping that it doesn't trot back in. That beeping just tells me that this is getting below the radar here, and so if I haven't been looking for a long, this is where I want to start looking for a long to scalp back to the upside. And it, like I said, if it targets again, I just enter again. And if I lose another 8 micros, like that's fine. Like it's, you know what I mean? You just hammer away at these because I know that these trap trades work often enough to do this. So might end up looking like a fool when it loses, but right. But like when you do the math and you realize how often these do work for at least 10 to 15 points, you realize you can literally just take every single one of them. And yes, you're going to get stopped. Like, 30% of the time you're going to have a stop. But the times that you're not stopped are going to easily pay for that, as long as you're really restrictive with which trades you're taking. That's really the part where most people mess up, is they just trade everything. They're like, oh, it's moving up, I should buy. Right? It looks like it's going up. Like that's not going to work. But with NQ, if you've got a good process with signals that work often like this, I don't even have to really watch the DOM. I just watch the algo. And if it sets up in the right spot like this, and it looks like it's trying to trigger me back in. It would have to be a star here. Yeah, it would technically have to be a star or a green bar. If there's no algo on this, the pink bar is not enough. That just means that sellers are pulling their orders. Star. So we take it again. And like I said, I might look like a dumbass and it stops out, and that's fine. But most of the time, I'm going to get most of my money back here. So my stop needs to go about 28. Basically at the low here. Right? If it gets down here, it's done. Right? So you could probably put it at 29. I'm putting it at 28, whatever. 16 points, whatever. Close enough. And then my profit target here is 56. So I want it to get up here into this zone. Anywhere in here is a good profit target. Really, I expect it to get here. My metrics are based on getting it from one side of the radar to the other side of the radar. That's what the metrics are. When I go back and I do my back testing, I want to measure how often does the market get from here to here and what happens when that occurs, right? And that's where the algos come from, is it's just telling me the market's likely to come back to the other side of the radar. That's all the algos are telling me, is when I see these signals, it's trying to get back here. Will it do it every time? No, right? But if I get these traps where we get a signal like a diamond or a star, and then it gets under it, chops it out, stops it out, and comes back and gives me another algo, this will often get here, very often. And so trying to get 10 points, I don't have the metrics for 10 points, but I bet you it's higher than 70%, right? I'm tempted to try to get 12 to 15 here because I took that stop earlier, and it's kind of frustrating, like having a win and not getting paid enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my normal 10, but I'm gonna leave 2 contracts. I've got the DOM on a different screen.
Target filled.
We filled the first contract, so now, or the first target. So now most of my profits, most of my contracts are out, right? And I'm gonna get out of the entire thing if this shows any sign of weakness, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and try to press it into that zone.
Target filled.
Like that, right? So we got into that zone. Now I got 1 left. If they want to push it a little farther, I'll leave it. But I'm targeting this blue line here, 65. If I can get that, I will just exit the trade. And if it shows any sign of weakness, I'll just exit. And I realize that means I'm going to miss out on like 100-point moves, right? But all I need to do is take like 2 of these a day in each account, and I should be able to qualify these in like 10 days, right? Because, I mean, you know, sometimes I should say I need to win 2 of them, right? So if I need to be up by 2. So here I took a loss on 1, and then now I'm above that. Let me see, can I show this to you without like giving away all my account information? I think I can. Oh, hold on. Let's wait till we exit. I'm not gonna boast about the wins until we actually exit the trade. Let's say it that way. Let's leave it at that. That's a good rule of thumb. So we're gonna try to get to that blue line, and like I said, if it gets there and it shows any sign of weakness, we're just gonna exit the last contract. Otherwise, if it shows weakness here, I'm fine exiting it here too, because I've already met my 10 points. Like that.
Order
All right,
filled.
so we were up $60, but I gave back a little bit, and now we're only down 82. Now, when we lost that first one, I gave 16 points, right, on my full amount. So we were down 250. And so now we're down 82, right? So that's the only negative of taking, you psychologically, it can be really difficult to take the stop here when the green bar stops out, take 10 points to 12 points here, and still be down a quarter of a stop, right? Because of the size of the, if you're used to like always getting 1-to-1 on your trades, which is a good place to start, especially if you only have a 60% win rate or something, it's going to take some getting used to work with something. To work with something where you have a better than 50% win rate, and where it's okay not to make back your losses on the very next trade. That has taken me. I'm still working through it. Has taken me a lot of work, like internally, personally, like just working through it. So now, had I held this, it probably hits my target, right? And you could say, like, why exit so quickly? Well, the reason is because the times that it comes all the way back and stops me out, I give back all of that, and it's as if I not only didn't make it, but that I also lost that. So it's as if I took another stop. With the trailing drawdown, it hurts you more to give back profits than it does just to get stopped out. So it's very important to remember that. So there we go, I hit the target, right? So right there, I would have just been totally out of the trade. And if it goes higher, it's just not for me. Someone else can work out the bigger moves. My metrics say when this trade occurs, when this signal occurs, it's likely going to that blue line. How often it goes higher than that, I don't know, right? It doesn't mean you can't be in the trade, but I'm not going to risk not just giving my profits back, but actually appearing like I took a little bit of a loss because of that trailing drawdown on something where I don't have any metrics on it, right? But the hard part about that is seeing it happen and knowing you were in the trade and not, basically you might take like a 12-point win and the trade goes for 50 points, right? And so in your brain, what you're going to do is you're going to say, wow, I missed out on, 35 plus 40 points, right? That's not very helpful because you have to remember that what you're focusing on is these little scalps. So now this trap back in as well. So this is technically a short. I wasn't fast enough. If it comes up here and does it again, I'll take it. But it just ticked it out by it just dropped it out by a tick. See that? It got above this high and came back in. The problem with taking this short is this. There are stops. There's liquidity sitting up here right? And so if you're going to short down here, even though I realize it's in the right spot, right? This is a valid entry. There's a power bar. We dropped above it and came back under it. Technically, it's a short to get it back here. The problem, but when there's so much liquidity here, it's gonna act like a magnet and pull the market back up. So what generally is gonna happen is you're gonna get a move like this. We'll see if that happens. I did not take the short. It's valid. I just skipped it because it's not high odds. But it's got a pink bar too from behind. It's a 3-bar combo and it's a trap back in, so it is valid. And like I said, when I'm doing my review and I'm entering these into the spreadsheet, I'm counting that as a valid trade that I'm consciously skipping, right? And everybody's gonna be different about like how aggressive they want to be. Like, do you want to take every single valid trade? Okay, like your win rate's probably gonna be about 70%, right? If you're afraid that you, like in my situation with trying to qualify these accounts, the way it's set up with my size here is I can basically take 4 losses in a row, but I can't take 5, right? If I take 5 losses in a row, anytime during the evaluation, it's going to blow up. And that's a heavy limitation, right? Now, once you've qualified the account and you've built a cushion, that drawdown does pause eventually. But that's only in the qualified real money account. In the evaluation, you've always got that trailing drawdown to work against you. And so once I qualify the account and I've built that cushion and the trailing drawdown stops, and if you want to pauses, basically, if you want to know more about that, you can visit Apex Trader Funding. Just Google that. I forget what it is. I can put the link in here if you want. But if anyone has a question about it, let me know. But once you get that cushion, once I get that cushion, I will be changing my strategy and holding runners because the trailing drawdown will pause. So giving back profits on a runner would be no different than taking it with a cash account. Whereas right now, giving back profits on a runner is actually worse than taking a stop on that same amount because it not only takes away your profits, but it looks like a loss. Especially if you're at the high watermark of the day. It's like if you've had like 3 good trades in a row and then you have another one that's pretty good, but you end up giving back half of it. It's not only did you give back half of it, you've actually lost that trade because now your trailing drawdown is based on your high watermark of the day. And so that required some adjustment, right? You're going to need to, if you're going to trade prop, you're going to need to adjust to the rules. And then those rules change. Now here, look, this is another trap back in. It traded underneath it. Nope, did not close above, so no long. It's already closed one down here, so now this is a very dangerous long to take. And this would be a huge bar. This would be your stop here. It'd be really big. Because the bar would close bullish at 40.25, right? And my stop would have to go under 22. I was like, fuck, that's a big stop. Too big for me. I mean, I guess it's just 15 points. It's not, right? Yeah, it's not too big. I suppose it just looked big. When I did the math, it's actually not that bad. 15 points is pretty standard. Just look kind of big. But one way or another, it's much better when you can get it like this, where it's just a wick that goes underneath. Again, that's a bell to remind me that I should be looking for longs if I think it's mean reversion. Now, I can use these lower indicators to tell me whether or not whether or not it's even a good idea to be looking long. And right now, honestly, it looks like it might not be a good idea to go long. It's looking like we're actually turning to the downside. I'm not going to trade momentum with these Apex accounts. I'm not going to trade breakouts. I'm not selling this. Not because I don't think it's going to work, but because my stop would have to be so high that, and while the big moves might pay you, if your goal is just to hit 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, you can't be taking trades that only work 30% of the time, in my opinion. It's just not going to work. Because like I said, you're going to take 5 stops too fast. Unless you want to do it with small size, but in my experience, trading these Apex accounts with really small size, like 4 or 5 micros, you end up spinning wheels a lot, and it takes you forever because of the fees with these micros. And like I said, the trailing drawdown makes it more sensible just to take profits anyway. And again, I realize that breakout, like, quote unquote, worked, right? You got 10 points from that. But, like, there's plenty of spots where that same exact thing doesn't work. So just trading under the low is not good enough for me to short. These little underlines here are a sign of divergence. They change color based on what's diverging. I have 3 different things that I'm measuring. It's not a trade signal, but it's to indicate to me that the market may want to naturally retrace, right? So it doesn't mean that this move is like done or exhausted or whatever, but it's that it would be very natural for it to come back and retrace back into here. But it's not reliable enough to trade on. What it will do though is if I'm back and forth between whether or not I should be taking a trade here, it will sway me in that direction. But I have noticed that the longer that they've been going on, when they continue and continue and continue, it's actually a sign that that divergence is probably it's going to be invalidated. It's like it's divergent, but only because we're still trading above a previous low. I don't know where it is, but once we get under that previous low, it'll just go away. Where'd it go? There. So that's been my experience. Is that like you could the blue is another one, right? So like here's a good example. It started right up here, and that's way too early in the down rotation to be expecting a big retracement, even though there's divergence. So this one does not get you your 10 points when you enter here, right? Doesn't quite get you 10 points. But then the divergence continues, right? It has not stopped at all. Same thing here, you get barely 10 points. Now look, the divergence stops, right? And then it starts again right here. See the blue underneath? That is the sign that you're probably retracing. It's when it's been like it hasn't been going the whole time. You had nothing, no divergence, and now you're diverging again. If it's been going on the whole time, that divergence is probably based on a much higher time frame. So it just means that like you're gonna get a retracement eventually, but it doesn't have to be this bar, right? Sierra chart's divergent measurement is just not that. I'm not that keen on it. Now, bigger picture in ES, we are hitting a voodoo range level here. See that? So we might get a reaction here. And then here we do have this divergence, but it's been going on since all the way up here. So I don't want to take the first one. Even though this was a really big, fast down wave that you probably do get a retrace, I'm not confident that I'm going to get a 10-point retrace. So I'm not going to take this signal. Right? It's too aggressive for me. This move was too intense, and I don't expect that we will get past this blue line often enough. And that's not big enough for me. But if we get underneath it, and then we trap back into it, and it doesn't look super bearish, or there's not a reason not to be long, then technically I could take the higher odds trade, which is the trap back in. And again, I realize it could just V up, but I'm not trying to catch every trade, right? You have to think about what your goal is. My goal is not to catch every move. I don't need every 10 points, right? I just want to be right as often as I can and grab like a few 10-point scalps with bigger size, as big a size as I can handle with this account. Which, like I said, right now is probably about 15 micros or 2 tops, max 2 contracts of the minis. But I'm used to adding on the pullbacks and managing my trades by taking pieces off as we go. So I'm using micro still, but I'm often getting in for more than the equivalent of 1 mini, right? I'm just using the micros to make it easier on me to manage the trade. But there's nothing wrong with taking this with 1 micro here and just getting out at 10 or 15 points. That's fine. In fact, that's how most people do it, right? Where I got in here with 8, and then planned on adding if we would have pulled back, but we just didn't. And then I got out here, got out here, got out here. Or actually, I got out as it pulled back because I didn't trust that it was going to get all the way there. You can just pick one of those and just exit your 1 contract. That's fine, right? And that's what most people do. I just have learned to manage the trade differently. So I'm using the micros for now. Eventually, those skills are helpful when you're trading more bigger contracts, but if your goal is just to, you know, qualify these accounts, these prop accounts, and pass these evaluations, doing it with micros is really tough. Really tough. And yeah, you might blow them up, right? If you make a mistake. When you're trading minis, like 2 minis, if you're trading the max amount of contracts that they'll let you trade, like you have to expect that you're going to blow it up at least once. But like the risk, I don't know. In my opinion, the risk of paying for that reload. See, look, it did make it that 10 points, and I'm not bothered by that at all because that's just not my trade, right? The risk of having to reload it, the price for me is smaller than what it would cost me to tilt on a cash account from doing the same thing. So like on these, if I make a mistake and I tilt out on it, worst case scenario, I blow the evaluation and I have to reload it for like it's like $80 I think plus tax in my state, so like $84 after tax. Whereas if I was trading even minis, or sorry, even micros in cash, and I have like a quote unquote bad day because like I took 2 stops in a row and then started tilting and throwing money around. Like I've had days where like, you know, there's a comma with multiple zeros after it, right? Just from fucking up. It's plain simple, just like human error. And if you don't have the if you don't like force your account to shut down after lose, like you can set up loss limits, right, on your broker, and I definitely recommend you do if you're trading cash. Actually, you can do it on prop accounts too. You don't have to blow up the account, right? You can stop trading after you lose a certain amount or give back a certain amount. That's the right way to do it. But we are all human and we're going to make mistakes. All right, so see how we're not getting all the way up to this blue line, right? We are trying to turn around inside the radar without testing the edge of it, right? Like here, we tested the edge of it, so this short was better. Yeah. It was not a super high odds short, but it was okay, right? I mentioned that we did trap back by a tick or two, but there's no pink bar here. There was a pink bar here, right? So this one I think was a pretty good trade. And this one, I think that was too early. I wasn't streaming yet. I took this one and this one for the long, skipped the short, that one worked, and then that is a aggressive trade back in after this big drop, especially when you've taken out, see this green bar here? When we trade under those, it can be problematic. Oh, I forgot to draw the DVP. So something we've been doing is we've been drawing DVPs on these. Oh, okay. So if we can get the market to come back here at 12,115 and then print a green bar or a star to the upside, I can long it. The problem is if you look at this profile, it's really even, right? There's not really there happens to be a VPOC here, but there's not really much of a cluster down here, right? So again, 3-bar combo is valid, but the location is poor. So usually you're going to get a trap here. Usually you're going to pull out liquidity and then dump it, or maybe just go higher. So it's a valid entry if you're aggressive and you take every single trade. That's fine. It's got a good win rate. But if you want to filter out the trades that are like not as high odds, you just skip these. But accept that they're going to work. And when I say work, I mean they're going to pay you like 12 points. Like more often than they won't. Right? So like I don't have the current metrics on this one because I don't take this aggressive of a trade, but it's in the middle here and it's a 3-bar combo. It's not quite good enough for me. But if I had to guess, it's probably like 55%, let's say. Again, I'm just kind of throwing out a number based on other things. It's not based on actual results. But if you take this exact, basically same setup up here, this one happens to have a speed bar on it also, but pink bar, nothing, orange bar, right? But it touches this back rail. This one works above 65, right? Whereas this one is only going to work, let's say, like 60%. So while if you're aggressive enough, you may not care that you're going to get stopped out an extra 5%. But when I'm trading these prop trading accounts, I can only take 5 stops in a row and then I'm going to blow it up. So I basically can't take this trade, even though I know it's going to work more often than it doesn't. while I'm qualifying the account. Unless I want to take it with a really small size. And at a certain point, like, you have to ask yourself whether or not it's even worth it. Right? Like, do I really want to take, like, a medium odds trade with 4 micros when I can just wait and probably get a high odds trade that I can take with 16? I'd personally just be patient. Because when this doesn't work, the likelihood that I'm now going to make an error because of, like, emotions is higher. Right? Now, the one benefit, the one reason to take this trade is the fact that we've got so much momentum here. See how the orange bars have gotten below the midpoint, right? And they're not able to get back up above it. And when I say midpoint, I mean this, like, whole red-pink area, like that zone. There's a pink zone, a green zone, and a red zone. See that? So if it gets past the red zone, it's potentially overexhausted, like this. Right? You can see that's associated with this, and that's a sign that we might be done. Maybe not right away, but that it's potentially exhausting. Whereas if it's just touching beyond the green, right, and that is a sign that if you're going the opposite direction, this is where you want to get in, is when that happens. So like here, again, that would confirm if you're bearish, once this happens, now is when they can start getting momentum. I'll show you earlier in the day when we're done with the review some other spots where that happens. But the important thing is to pay attention to where these orange bars are, and when they swing back up into their regular rotations, whether or not they are clearing these green lines, clearing the red lines, or clearing the white lines, right? Now I also have overlaid on that a second indicator, which is this blue one, which I'm primarily looking for divergence on. I could trade without it. It's not essential. But it does give me some insight into where we are in the rotation, just like this blue line here. So generally, you want to take your longs when it's rising from the bottom, and you want to take your shorts when it's falling from above. That's the simplistic view of it. Is it, like, see here, this short is much better than, say, this short, right? This short would be better than this short. And this one up here is, like, just okay. Now, this one worked great, right? So you are going to filter out some good trades for doing that. But you're also going to filter out a lot of crap. Or, like, just false signals that look really good, but aren't likely to work. As long as I'm talking about the charts on the right here, I've got the 80 tick. This isn't going to change very often, right? It's very slow. But it's basically looking at the exact same program, but on a higher time frame to show me where I am relative to the higher time frame. So what this shows me is basically today and overnight has been balance, right? We've been spending most of our time and volume inside of the radar here, inside of these channels, the blue lines. Most of the trades have happened in there. That is a sign of balance, right? But you can see here that shorts, bears were clearly in control. We had a lot of purple here, right? Which is like accelerating selling. And you can only get long when that stops happening. So like here, once this happens, you have to wait till that stops. So once you've seen this, now I can start looking for longs, right? So like this is an okay long, this is a better long because it's trapped behind this. That's your best long here. This one got the green light, but it's too high. See that? And it did work, but it's just like this one here, where it's like, it's good, it's just not great. And this again, pink bar, this is going to be a green bar if it closes low, or sorry, orange, and a star. It's a good trade as long as you're bearish. It's fine to short that. But I would need to do it with a very small size because I don't know how often I get my 10 to 12 points. And I think it's probably closer to 30 or 40% rather than the 65 to 75% of the time that I need. Like I said, if I only want to take 4 stops in a row, I can't be taking momentum trades. They're just, unless I'm set up at the right location as well. That would, I guess, be the exclusion. If you want to trade momentum too, you need to pick spots very carefully. And so, for instance, here, let me show you. Here, on our NQ chart, what's going on here? On the NQ chart, you can see that we are trading right near the lows of the day, the regular trading hours days. That is not a great place to, you're in the hole, essentially, right? Like, you do have liquidity down here that's probably going to get sucked up. I'm not saying we're not going to go there, right? But the idea that they're just going to let you get there with one, like, false swoop is just, like, imaginary most of the time. Usually they're going to go test, break, test, trap, test, break, test, trap, flush, right? Once everybody's given up on the short, that's when they'll finally flush it. So while this looks like, when you would see these work, these like more momentum style trades, when you see them work, and you're like, look how easy that is to get 10 points. It's like, yeah, when they work great. But guess what? They don't work that often. They don't work as often as they need to. Right? And I'm still really learning this. Okay, we did not trap underneath this, so that star's not good enough. We need to break all of these green lines for me to get long. And even then, it's risky because it's at the end of the day. I normally do not trade the end of the day. I'm trading in these eval accounts. It's like it's a sim account technically, so I've been less stringent about like those like really hard and fast rules, like I would with a funded account, but like a real money account. I'm not going to trade the last 30 minutes because I know I'm likely to give it up, right? But yeah, today has been like okay. I'm getting used to trading higher size and did make some mistakes and then missed at least 3 trades that we're going to review that I was just away from the keyboard, not away from the mouse, not able to trade it. I committed to trading the first 90 minutes and did good there, right? I unfortunately gave some of it back, but I ended the day green, and then I signed on with you guys and started a new account, and that one's just slightly red, but the decisions were good, right? And if the bell wasn't ringing in 30 minutes, and I kept doing what I'm doing with that account, like if I don't think about it day to day, but instead like as a string of trades across multiple weeks, I'm doing good. Okay, this is potentially a long here. It's got to trigger a star, but see how it's traded underneath these green lines now? And so if it comes back with a star, I can technically take this. It needs to be a star though, and it has to be a star after they close. So if they close the bar bullish and there's a white star in it, I can buy it. And again, the idea will be get 10 points, get the fuck out. Maybe try to push for 15, but okay, no algo signal. There's no star here. This star is not confirmed until you see how it disappears? Because it's not confirmed until you get to the here, right? Wow, so it does work, even though you didn't get the algo signal. It's unfortunate. That would have gotten me my 10 points. It just didn't trigger. So this is the drawback of using an objective approach. But for all the times that this happens, where it didn't quite trigger, but yet it worked, 10 times as many times, had I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and take it even though the algo didn't trigger, 10 times as many, like it's gonna just stop out. Sometimes it's going to work even without the signal. Most of the time, if it doesn't signal, it doesn't work, right? But I have to be accepting of the fact that I'm going to get a missed signal sometimes. This one is a really good looking bar though. It trapped underneath, and the problem is there's a purple bar here. It may be good enough. It did get underneath all of this. There's liquidity down here, right? We had a purple bar here, and we traded underneath the radar. It might be good enough, but I don't have metrics on it, so I'm not taking it, right? Like, it's a guess that it's as good as like the star or the green bar. It's just a guess because I don't have metrics. I could build an algo that tells me when that occurs and then easily backtest it. That's not hard. It takes time, but it's not impossible. But I don't have those metrics, so if I took those trades and they stopped working, I wouldn't know whether or not that was normal or not. And that's the key to trading profitably and confidently, is to have a system that you can trust. Oops, I thought that was an arrow, but I guess it's not. Oh, I see, it's the, okay. I thought I was deleting an arrow, but there was no arrow there. So like I said, it looked like a good one. I could have just gotten in, but at the end of the day, did not trigger with the algo signal. But the location's right, the action's right, but like there just wasn't enough aggression, let's just say. Like on the because what the algo is doing, it's actually reading this footprint here, right? So it's reading this. I can't share like what they all are meaning, but it's reading this and it's basically saying like, are there conditions, are X, Y, Z conditions existing in here and in here? And if they are, they give me a signal, right? It's looking at this, and it's also looking at the DOM. So like, all those things. Hold on. Nice. Okay, Mike. Good job, Bill. All right. Always good to see team members doing well. All right. It's fun because so many people in the room are working on these Apex accounts because they just had this big sale that like, it's really motivating. If you guys are trading alone, I have to like I mean, please come join our group. But like, if you don't want to join us, like find at least an accountability partner, if not like some sort of group of people that you can trade with, and preferably that trades somewhat similar to you, because it is really beneficial psychologically. And this game is like a huge part of it is just psyche, right? Once you've figured out your edge, that is honestly is way more important. But once you have an edge, actually making money with that edge comes down to just working on your psychology and working on your like discipline and your fear. So this looks like a decent trade too, right? We traded above this power bar, came back with a star. If they give me an opportunity to sell this cheap, I will. If they pull back in, I didn't have my mouse hovered over. I was chatting and not trading, but this one is good enough because of the location. Like I said, I will wait. I guess I could technically get in if it just gives me that little bit of I missed it. It came back to right where I was, where I would have triggered it. That sucks. Had two opportunities, I missed it. Like I said, it's okay. At this point, I'm gonna skip it because I don't really want it once it's like tried and comes back. What I want it to do is to pull back right away and then turn around, right? Or just go. What I don't want it to do is try, get into this like VPOC area and reverse. I don't want that. And remember, this VPOC is right on this green line, right? So bullish signals on this level would be a sign that they are rejecting lower prices and potentially trapping shorts. So this actually looks more like a long than a short at this point. But this would have to be a star. And the location's not perfect, right? Again, because this wave, oh fuck, that's not the wave to the low anymore. Shit, I didn't do this right. Damn. Okay, so I've got to take this wave because this went lower, no? Yes, this wave went lower. It stopped this out. So I need a star or a green bar all the way down here, which could have been this one, but it didn't happen. Just didn't trigger, right? It probably, I know there's a lot of green lines here. There's just been other VPOCs down here. So this is a really important area. I'm gonna take these other ones out. This is a really important area that I've had to measure over and over and over again. So this 12,100 level is a really important spot. It's probably not going to exit this area before the close. Let's be honest, right? It's probably going to close in this area, unless they are brutally trapped. But I don't see that, right? We don't have heavy delta. The heaviest delta on the sell side on the bid is down here, right? So if we can stay above that, they can get trapped. But right now, that's pretty much right where we are, right? We need to leave that area. Okay, so maybe they will. If they leave this area, come back and break this one, then we're out. But look, this whole area in here, between these two big deltas, is probably where we're gonna get stuck, right? And so if I see this at 12,140, I can't really get long at 12,135, right? If I'm targeting 10 points, it does not make sense to get long like anywhere above this, even if everything else was lined up, because I don't have enough risk reward. Doesn't mean we can't break out of here, which, like I said, which would be a little bit frustrating because the algo just didn't signal, even though the setup was there. I just didn't get the signal I wanted. So like when that happens, you always kind of want it to fail, right? But the truth is the market just does what it does, and you just gotta accept that sometimes you're not gonna catch the move because it didn't do what you have measured it to do over and over again. My edge is following my plan and my process, which has been back tested and forward tested, front and back, and every day I study it and improve it and work on it with my coach, right? Like that's my edge. My edge is not knowing that the market's not going to go down, or being confident the market's going to go up. It's being confident that I'm going to get 10 points when I get this signal, this signal or this signal. Like that's the edge, right? And so again, this one I definitely could have taken. This one it could have taken that too. This one I do not have a reason to take. This is not a setup by itself. It did not clear these lower lines. It needed to suck up this liquidity, get below this, and go. And that's exactly what it did. But I wanted an algo signal here to be absolutely certain that it follows my plan, and I did not get it. Probably because it's the end of the day, and the volume is just not distributed like it normally is. Because the algo is looking at the volume too, as well as the order book and the footprint. So everything else about that trade was perfect, right? It just didn't give me my signal. So the solution to that is either accept that you're going to miss trades, which is the easy solution, or dig in and figure out what could I have done to produce a signal there, and then back test that signal, right? But that's a long process. That's not something we can do in an hour. That is a process over weeks, if not months. Okay, so we've got ES approaching another voodoo range level here. See that? So we went from down here, and see how they test below and they just rip up? That's really normal. This is what looks to me like an expanding negotiation, so we're probably headed back up here, right, to fill in more of these single prints, if I had to guess. That's probably where we're going. But I can't just buy because I think it's going higher. I don't have an edge there. Like, you can if you want, but I can't just buy here and put my stop down here and be like, I hope it works. No. No. I'm not going to have like a 80-point stop or something. And even if I think I can make 150 points, I'm not going to get an 80-point stop on NQ. Not a thing that I do. What I could do, if it was regular trading hours, is do it with options, right? That'd be okay. That's what I used to do, swing trading. But fuck, I keep on opening up. But yeah, I think it's not realistic to do that with futures. It's just not realistic. All right. That was a nice move. I would have only gotten 10 points out of it had I taken it. I almost took it. But almost does not pay the bills. Okay, so here we go into this liquidity area, right? Up here. See how there's no more red lines up here? These red lines are previous swings. So if we get up here and we drop back down, there's only 15 minutes left in the day. I really shouldn't be trading. So if it sets up here, I would just skip it, even if it signals, because I've got this liquidity sitting up here. And that alone has been a huge fix for me. It does mean I missed some trades, but I'm telling you, waiting for the higher odds setup has been the difference between me getting very, very frustrated and staying very calm. Everybody's different, but for me, that has made a huge difference. Like what style works for you might be different than me. But I like being aggressive in the right spots. I do not like just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then like checking in on my P&L to see if I'm blowing up. Like I can't handle that kind of stress. I want to have a high level of confidence that I can be right. I want to aggressively attack those edges. So I want to be aggressive in that way rather than just like throwing, like, oh, I got at least a 50% chance here. I can try to get 1-1. Like, no, that's not my style. If you do that and you trade and you profitably, like, keep doing it. But that's not for me. Now we can see that the volume has gotten us a bigger wave than the previous two to the upside, right? These waves are volume waves. So clearly we don't want to be just fighting this for no reason. I mean, even though it's dinging at me, it's basically saying, hey, if you think this is balanced, you can probably look for a short up here. But this this is momentum, right? These are trap traders now. Now all of these guys are trapped, right? Doesn't mean we can't get back there, but it means I basically need to wait for this to exhaust. I can't just expect this to. I can't say that it's overbought, right? Sorry about the dings. When I'm. You can only focus for so long, and if you watch a balance day go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it doesn't set up where you want it, you're going to get distracted. And so the ding says to me, hey, we are trading further than what you would expect on a regular day. We're trading further from the midpoint, right, of like the last so many bars. I don't have the exact numbers, doesn't matter. So if it's balance, this is where the mean reversion trades are set up, right? But I have to decide whether or not I even want to do that. And the first rule of thumb is that if it's pink in the background, I don't want to fuck with it till that pink goes away, right? So now if that pink goes away and it gets a signal, it technically could be an aggressive trade. But I need it. Did it test above this by 1 tick? It did. So if this comes back and it gives a star or a orange bar, it is technically a short. This volume is pretty intense, and it would be very aggressive. But it would have to trigger first. And it's in the last. It's gonna be MLC in 2 minutes. I'm not gonna take the trade. I'm glad it's not setting up. So you can see as long as they keep pushing with more and more buy pressure, this is gonna stay pink. There's actually 2 different colors. There's like a dark pink and a light pink, like a more see-through pink. And then there's a purple, light purple. The dark purple, when those get reversed like this, it doesn't always go up, but it's likely getting ready to revert. When the light color one goes away, like here, right? It does not mean that the move is done. It's just like a regular retracement. Whereas when these stop coming up, like here, and then you get a pull. Like I said, you need a move down that doesn't produce one, right? So you get a move down without one, and then it comes up. So once you see this, you know not to just short with momentum, because you've gotten that move. And especially once you've seen this, like momentum is no longer going low. And then here they try to go higher. Now we've seen the dark pink here. I guess it's like brighter. It's not darker. It's like brighter, less transparent, and that suggests that we need to wait until that stops before we can expect a real retracement. Could we get 10 points in the other direction? Yeah, right. You might get back to this midpoint, but we're not just gonna like reverse most of the time, unless you're in a primary location like this. Like this one actually did have a down bar that didn't get one, so this is a good example of one that's when that system works. And like here, down bar, right? No background. This one's much better for long, right? And then this is a down bar without it, but it's only been light pink. See that? Now it's been dark pink. So now if the dark pink stops, see now if this one is a down bar and there's no pink, then the next setup is probably going to work. But you can't just sell it. I still need to set up. It's not a high enough odds just to sell it because it stopped. Because otherwise you'd end up selling down here. Right? You either need location, and even better would be location plus an algo signal. It's still bright pink, right? So they've got shorts by the curly hairs right here. They are big time fucked and trapped. And I mean, if you look here, it makes sense, right? We trap below the voodoo range level and just rocket it out. But we're getting right back into this balance zone. So what makes sense to me is we bounce around in here for a bit, take out this liquidity, and then go lower. That's what usually happens. But who knows? I don't get paid for guessing where the market's going to go next. I just trade my edge, one trade at a time. Market on close was positive, so someone's buying the dip, and that makes sense, right? When you have one of the biggest down days in the last 2 years, I think I heard like so I'm like maybe even bigger than that. That's a rare occurrence, And so these long only traders, these long only accounts that are required to be in the market at all times or in cash, right? They can't get short. They can just be in cash or in the market, and they usually have a mandate for having a certain amount in equities. Like especially if bonds are like not a place you really want to be. If they have to be in equities or cash, they're going to choose equities. Especially if it's quote unquote cheap. Does not mean that we're going to go up for 5 days, right? But it means that getting some responsive buyers below the lows of like below support like that is going to happen a lot, which is why, like I said, that's why I wanted to take this long. And again, it's frustrating that didn't really trigger. I'll have to, like I said, I will look and see how often that occurs. It's rare, I think, but this looks like the kind of bar that gets a star. It just didn't get one. So I will look into that. But after we get the close, we're going to go back and review the high odds setups and see how many actually worked. And then I'm also going to take a look and see how the like good but not super high odds setups worked, and see if I'm making a good decision by skipping everything but the very, very, very best. And by best, I mean like the ones that have back tested the best, right? Obviously, past performance is not indicative of future results, but good enough for me, but it might not be for you, right? Trading futures has a lot of risk, all that, etc. Not a financial advisor. Hopefully verbal disclosure is good enough for you. Don't trade just because I'm trading. Trading is dangerous. You could lose a lot of money, especially trading futures. All right. Like I said, I'm not doing anything here. We do have some purple pivots we're running into on ES, right? And you can see how they've kind of, they haven't held the market inside of them, but they've produced some reactions. See that? So when we have such a high volatility range, like a wide range with high volatility, those purple pivots are going to get traded through pretty easily. And honestly, that one, the middle one, is pretty old. We've probably traded through it enough now that I could remove it. Once we leave the area, I will remove it. I usually leave them on there just in case, but if we leave the area and we've been trading right through it, I will just end it. I'll show you what I mean. So on NQ, there was an area here. I mean, clearly we're reacting to it, right? Well, we left the area and then traded through that zone again, right? And so I'm just gonna, and then we printed a new one. So I'm just gonna use this new one, right? I don't need both of them. I don't know if we're gonna get a reaction down here, but chances are we'll get them in here, you know? But yeah, hopefully you can sort of see how some of those levels are kind of helpful to have. You know, is it gonna be good enough to buy them every single time they touch? No, of course not. Wow, that was a good trade. Like I said, disappointed, but that's okay. I would have only gotten 10 points, 15 points on it anyway. And that's been kind of keeping my emotions in check. But yeah, that's a interesting. See, this one had a purple 2 bars behind it too. Oh, it might be worth it. Let me see if anybody else in the room took it. They didn't say so. It may just be last 30 minutes a day, right? And that's why I didn't trigger. But I'm gonna watch for that and see if maybe that's, because like I said, I had every reason to take that, but it didn't signal, right? The location was right, the action was right. The algo just didn't see what I told it to look for. And so that's okay, but it makes me wonder, is there something I'm missing? Is there something I could be measuring that I'm not, right? Because that was clearly a pretty good move. And so maybe getting underneath these algo signals and trapping back in, even if there's no algo on it, maybe that's all you need in certain situations. Okay, so that diamond simply means that we've got a lot of volume at the top. So it can be a sign that we're turning, but it's usually not ready to go yet unless we're trapping back into a red line, which we're not. The closest red line's way down here. We can measure this from the low. It's going to continue higher. But if it doesn't, it would be here. And you can see that most of the volume's way down here at the voodoo range level, 12,125. So I really, to think about getting short, we'd need to get under that. All the volume is down here. But look at how well it's spread out. See that? If we chop around in here, we'll build this area up in volume. And then if we trade a little bit higher and turn around, that could get us a good short. Right? I really don't want them to try to break down now unless I'm looking to get long. And that's the important thing to know is, now look, if you were watching the 80 tick, you can see that when we were down here, it made sense to be looking for longs, right? And you can see that we've not yet reached the top of the channel. So it makes sense to wait here. Because on the higher time frame, there's really no reason to be selling this zone. There's liquidity above us, see? But I can't see that here because it's way up here. So that's another reason why it's kind of nice to have that higher time frame open. Doesn't mean it can't turn here, but it means that turn is probably not going to take out this low. Okay, so they continued the green. And see how the volume just shifted? Now the volume's up here. So now we can think about, now it's going to close, of course. But now we can think about taking a short if we get the signal, right? We need to trap this and come back in with a orange bar or a pink star to the downside. I can technically trade, I believe, 10 minutes after the bell, but it's pretty shitty liquidity. It's and you potentially get like insta stopped right at the bell because they just like fill the market on close orders. I mentioned yesterday in my review that 12,209 was an important level. It'd be hilarious if we closed right there. What I think is cool is that 12,209 aligned almost perfectly with where we are here at this ES voodoo range level 2. So this is, and the reason it's important if you don't want to watch my review yesterday is that we had a lot of volume there. Oh, I'm sorry, we had a let me think. It was the volume area high of a. I guess you have to watch it. I don't know. I talked about too many things in there, and I thought I remember what it was, but I think what it was a volume point of control on a higher time frame, if I remember correctly, of a wave to the high. And I had said yesterday that I thought we're probably going to go up and clean up the liquidity, gather the liquidity above that, and then potentially reverse back down again. Whether or not we go lower or not, I don't know, right? It makes a ton of sense to just push and expand range higher and then fill these single prints. Tons of sense, right? So if you wanted to be long the market, when I said I would not sell the breakdown here, right? As soon as we saw that start to turn around, it would not have been too late to buy for a longer term hold. It just didn't fit my criteria for having a 70 to 75% win rate to get 10 to 12 points. So it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be buying options for tomorrow's, like with the intention of selling in the next like couple days, right? Like if you think it's going higher from here, like yeah, well, that's a good opportunity. But is it a good time for me to just buy NQ? Probably not. According to my metrics, I don't know, right? I don't have data that says whether or not I'm going to get that 10 points more often than I don't, unless I get this star over here. So it's unfortunate that it didn't trigger, but it didn't. And to be honest, that is the biggest complaint people have about the algo, is they want to trade instinctively. And they say, I knew I should have gotten long, but the algo said I shouldn't. Now I missed this big move, and I would have taken it had I not been watching the algo. Well, the problem is we also have to think about and measure and take note of all of the times when we instinctually wanted to exit a trade, but the algo said to hold, and then it paid us. Or the times when we instinctually wanted to get into a trade, but the algo said not to, and it stopped, and it would have stopped out. And in my experience, those are way more common. That's what I was trying to say before. That's just from personal experience, right? Your instincts are your instincts. But when it comes to my instincts, I feel very, very confident when I have those instinctual senses, and I'm less. They don't work as often as I think they should. So let me take a quick break. I can break my fast here. I'm gonna have a quick protein bar now that we're closed. It looks like we're gonna extend up to the liquidity up here, right? Into this zone. Whether or not we close above the voodoo range level, I don't know, but it does look like we're going higher. On NQ, what that looks like is this. So you can see that we've got these levels up here. We're clearly trying to close these single prints. And like I said, expanding negotiation makes sense here. Get lower than the low, get higher than the high, get lower than a low, get higher than a high. And that is honestly the hardest market to trade, the market conditions. So if you have, like we do, a technique that works in markets like this, like you're way ahead of most people, right? Okay, let me take a quick break. Okay, I'll leave you some music, and I will be back to do the market review. And see if anybody. I'll invite folks to. Let's see. Why is chat disabled for the? Okay, here we go. Be back in 3 minutes. All right, see you guys soon. guys. So we're gonna start the trade review section of this, or part of this video here. Turn this down. All right. Okay. So I had a positive day. I traded okay, but my results are not as good as average. But so we're gonna go back and see. I know that I, first of all, purposely skipped a few trades that I was underconfident with. And then we had at least one trade at the end of the day that just didn't set up the way I wanted it to. Like I said, I can look into that. Erase all volume profiles. Okay, and then I was also away from the keyboard for multiple trades, and a trade that set up beautifully, but didn't. Let me take this all out. But didn't. It set up within the first 15 minutes, so I skipped it, because generally the first 15 minutes, when I take a lot of trades in the first 15 minutes, I tend to regret it because I have a hard time dealing with the losses so early in the morning, and coming back from multiple losses in the morning is really difficult for me. So it generally moves pretty fast, so I tend to wait at least 15 minutes, if not 30 minutes, before getting involved, and then push with full size after that. And today, there was reason to get involved earlier, but I talked myself out of it because of the timing. So let's just look at the bigger picture here, and I'll show you in the algo. Oh yeah, here's the example. Here's where 12209 came from. It is the point of control of this down wave here to the low. Cool, that's what I thought. All right, so on the 80 tick, yesterday we had this big momentous down day, right? Down, 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 down. Take out some of these here. Okay, so all down all yesterday, right? We could not, you can see that on trend days, volume basically stays away from this channel, right? We stay under it the whole time. And when price gets into the channel, it rejects. That is a sign of momentum, right? This is the 80 tick chart, whereas we trade the 24 tick, but this kind of gives you a picture of what's going on in the in the bigger time frame. The purple in the background, the two purple colors here, indicates that bears are accelerating their momentum. When you see only one color, well, purple, light purple, and black, but no pink, right? It's a sign that we are bearish. Whereas when it is some purple, some black, and some pink, it's a sign of balance. Whereas if it was all pink all the time, and no purple at all, it's a sign that we're trying to get bullish there. Doesn't mean you should just buy it, right? Something I want to look at, we talked about a little bit in the room today, and I want to see if I'm right about this, is that when the 80 tick chart, or the higher time frame chart, let's just say, doesn't probably have to be the 80 tick exactly, when the 80 tick chart is up above the radar, right, the blue channel here between these blue lines, when it's up above here, we generally should be avoiding longs, or at least filtering out the medium odds trades. In other words, we should only be taking our highest odds long trades, and instead, assuming it's balanced, look for reversions to the mean to the short side, right? Because our target is always to trade from one side of these this channel to the other, and on this time frame, that's 50 points, right? No, sorry, 250 points. So, am I going to get the 250 points? No, not in a single trade. And so obviously, within this 250 point drop, there are multiple 10-point retracements, right? So if you wanted to take if you wanted to somehow capture every single move, you'd have to take the longs and the shorts up here. But what I'm finding is that when the chart is setting up at the lows here, it makes more sense on a balanced day to look for longs on the small time frame, and when we are setting up above it or at the top of it, it makes more sense to look for shorts. Whereas when on the higher time frame, we can't even trade inside of it like this. Right? See how once we traded above it, so it was very bullish for a moment. We traded through it, and then the first sign something was up was right here. By 7:30, right, an hour before the open, when the CPI came out yesterday, it was clear at that point that we should not be longing this, right? That the higher time frame was unable to get price or volume inside this range where they should normally stay most of the time, right? We can't even get in there without sellers showing up. In other words, sellers are running over each other, climbing over each other, trying to get out of the market and short the market. So we don't want to be buyers even when we're at the lows, even though that exact same location is exactly where we want to be getting long during a balance day, right? When prices are down here like this. That would be our ideal entry point at like 7 a.m. this morning, right? If not like this, when we've tested below it, but we're rejecting that, right? That same like, what's it called? Like relative position is here. There's no long signal there, but like, let's say this, right? Or this. But you don't want to take these longs, even though this does give you maybe 10 points. It's like the hardest 10 points you're ever going to make. Whereas getting short on these retraces will make you money on a regular basis, as long as the higher time frame is like this. But once if you're seeing this on the higher time frame, right, you're going to want to be only looking short on the smaller time frame. And the problem with that means that down here you're going to miss this long, right? Unless you have some other way to tell you that this is done. Now the way I have to tell me that it might be done is I need a trap. An example of a trap on the higher time frame is a star or an orange bar at the or green bar if you're going the other direction on the wrong side of the market. So these yellow stars are good sells when they happen up here. They are potential traps when they happen down here. Once we get over it can't just print, we have to get over it with volume, right? So here's where we get over it with volume. That's a pink bar, it's not as good. This one clearly above this high, this bar right there got the volume point of control above the high of that star, and it closed above it. Once this occurs, right, so when we're looking at like, we're looking at like this, and this is yesterday, no, this is this morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, Central Time. Once that occurs, right here, I can now start looking long on these pullbacks on the smaller time frame, right? So like that right there is your ideal entry, right? Whereas that exact same looking algo, this, is not a buy the day before. And that's where people get confused, is like they just want it to be like, I only want it to be green when I want to buy. Well, then you need to take the algo, get it on your desktop, and adjust it down to simplify things, because you're going to need to manage and what the market's doing on the higher time frame to improve your odds. So if you're okay with 50-50, then take that one, take this one, you're good. Make your money back, right? I want better than 50-50. I want to know not to take that one, and I want to know to take this one, right? So I need to be aware of what the rest of the market's doing. So I need rules like I need to trap a short down here and test it and then reject it, right? And so if it's set up long again like here, this is also a good long, but you can see that it was like 833. And so this is the one I skipped, even though it looked really good. So let's go take a look at the smaller time frame that I was actually watching. We'll start a little early. I did trade a little bit. Oops, that's so big that it's covering like multiple hours. Sorry. I did trade a little bit overnight, so let me just show you that real quick. It wasn't real exciting. This is the close right here. This is Globex when it's yellow or whatever this brown shitty color is. That's Globex because it's shitty trading. So you can see that we were clearly balanced on the 24 tick, right? And so when we're doing that, and another way to look that we're balanced is that these pink ones are staying inside the green zone, right? They're not getting above it, not getting below it. The orange is no longer way at the top or way at the bottom, or when it gets there, it rejects like this, right? And then the orange bars on the indicator below, there we go, down here, these orange bars are spending most of their time between the green lines, see that? And they're going on like equals both back and forth, right? It's not like all in the top or all in the bottom. It's not having any trouble crossing that midpoint, this pink area. It can easily cross through there, and it's getting at least to the green and returning back up. See that? Very natural movement. And then these are the individual swings. And the green line is just a slower version of the orange area. Okay, so there's different time frames. And what you really want is for everything to be going up down here, like this, right? Everything's rising slightly. Now I know the bigger orange one hasn't quite turned around, so sometimes that one's a little laggy because it's so short. So, sorry, the length is so long. But you can get further confirmation with the fact that this exhausted slightly. See how it got so close to the red? And now we have a divergent low on the blue one. The divergent low on the orange doesn't come until here, which is like the entry point. So you really wouldn't know that for sure until the next bar. But the blue one is clearly divergent, right? It's making higher lows, whereas price is making lower lows, sorry. So the indicators here are giving me conditions, right? It's saying the market is trying to be bullish. It doesn't mean that it's done being bearish. It means that they are trying to go higher. I just want this. I shouldn't have fucking drawn on this. It's such annoying. No! It should be locked. This should be locked. Good. So now I should be able to do this and then not delete. Okay. Let me just save this real quick because I get upset when I have to redo things. All right. Anyway, so this right here is our first buy signal. That's like high odds, right? Because it occurred at least touching, if not below, the blue line, right? This one's probably good enough for 10 points most of the time, right? This one is probably good enough for 10 points most of the time. During Globex, I'm usually just skipping those because it does so much of this, right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, chop, 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 chop. So I'm not going to trade every single one of these, but you could. If I've got big moves beyond the radar, I will take all of them, right? As long as I still think it's neutral, not super bearish, not super bullish. So here we did get underneath, right? And we tried and we rejected the midpoint. Some potential bearishness. But look up here, our only trapped trader was this guy, the only trapped aggressive trader was this star up here. There's no stars up at the top, right? Oh, there's nothing to the upside. There's only this downside speed bar and absorption bar down here. And then this guy gets, and this guy. This one even has a green confirmation. This one gets clearly trapped too, but they're in the same location, right? So the idea is, as long as I'm okay with the market only going this high, and I can still get paid, I can get long. Because if we're getting bearish here, then that's where we're going to turn around. And you can see that that's interacting with the top of the radar. So right away I know. And we're at the bottom of the radar. So right away I know if I've got a high odd setup, I should be okay taking it. Now, there's no purple bar here, but I have this purple background, right? And this, in this case, this is the dark purple background. It's the very first one we had. It was one bar and it immediately disappeared, right? So here you can see this is two light pink ones that immediately disappeared. That move down is not that great. Later traps are okay, right? This one had some dark, it disappeared. It's now black. That one's a good short right away because it got dark and then it went away. I talked about that earlier, but if you didn't understand that, that's what's going on there. So the purple says buyer or sellers are increasing their momentum and don't buy until you get a signal after that goes away. It goes away here, we get a signal. It's an okay long, even though there's no purple bar here. I'd prefer this purple bar was down here. I also have divergence that confirms there's a good chance we're going to get a retracement, and that retracement likely comes back to here. Okay, so that was, and there's target hit, right? What it does from here, I don't care, but you can see that it chops around a little bit. I took a stop. So I took that, and then I took a stop Right. Was it this one? Yeah. So what happened here? Oh no, that didn't trap back in. So this trapped back in and then stopped out. We got above a red line here, right there. This one, I believe I took 2. And the reason is because we've traded through this here. And this is actually a purple bar. It's also orange, but the outline's purple. See that? And we've gotten above the radar. We had pink behind here that went away, and that immediately got an orange bar in the right location that tested above the previous apex, right? And then went lower. You can see down here, we were looking pretty bullish, right? Everything's rising, but we're at the top, and these are starting to turn over, right? We got a little bit close to exhaustion here, and this is the next signal down. So it's a valid trade, but the problem with this, is this the one that stopped out? No, that one worked. Maybe it was this one. One of these stopped out. But the problem with these is when you're on the short side, you often get a lot of choppiness before it just rolls over suddenly, whereas the long side's just a lot smoother more often than not. But that was the next high odds trade was here. Like it's not A+++, but it's like it's an A trade, right? This is suggesting momentum to the upside because you've got purple bar star at midpoint. So you'd have to get out of your trade if you didn't already. You know what? I remember what happened now. I got my 10 points, and I noticed it didn't hit down here, and I believe the runners stopped out. Nope, I'm wrong. Okay. So this up here did not get broken, right? But we did get triangle up, followed by the red line, and we got the pink bar, the pink background going away. So this isn't okay. It's like a B trade, right? It's in the okay location. I did not take this, and I wouldn't take it. I would wait till I get up here to trap them out. I'm going to stop them out. Now, that one worked, right? But the problem is they maybe work 60% of the time, and I can only take 4 stops in a row, so I didn't take it. All right, here we get underneath, right? Same situation as this, but this one stopped out this green line, right? And it had divergence, and then I got the green one. I was in bed by here, but this is technically a trade entry with purple ending followed by green and triangle down followed by green. Down here we have divergence on the blue line, see that? Now the only thing missing here is that the orange bars aren't going anywhere really. They're chopping in the middle, which suggests balance. And while balance might be good, it's probably not going to go very high. And then here, everything's falling, right? But you do potentially have a lift on the blue one. So it's a B plus trade. And it's usually going to get 10 points or more. It'll work a lot more often than it doesn't, but sometimes it won't work. Okay, so this one did not quite clear that top red line, which is why I draw the red line extensions. Otherwise, it would have been a good trade. And you can see it stops out, right? Maybe that was the one I was thinking about. Okay, and then it gets way up here, stops out it takes all the liquidity, and see how it was dark pink, and it's light pink, and then it's nothing, right? Just the red line, which is actually a short signal, and a star. And then there's divergence here. So this is a similar short to this being long. It's the same signal, just in reverse. Okay, we're getting beyond the radar. We've got a sign of aggression, divergence, and we've trapped beyond all these guys too. So that one works. I was asleep for that. Now this one might look good, right? It's trapping back in and it turned green. It's got a green background. Everything's good there, right? There's a little bit of divergence, but it's very recent. And it did move really fast from 216 to 219. The problem here is look at where the orange is. It's falling underneath the red. That is usually a sign that we are getting pretty aggressively bearish. See here, as it falls underneath the red line, it happens right there, right? So like it would be as if you bought this. Usually it's just going to go boom. And so this orange being in the wrong place, it's at the wrong side as these other ones, and the green is not yet turned. See how it worked? Like this one works better once this green is at least flatlined, if not started to lift, in addition to the blue being divergent. And in this case, the orange is also divergent. Here you've got a little bit of divergence in the blue, but that's it. So it's like, it's not bad. It's just not the best conditions for a mean reversion trade, right? There is a purple bar before the star. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking it. It's just not something I'm doing right now. And then this one, similar situation here, but now we've gotten this to flatten out a bit. But look how orange is just dropping, right? Yeah, this did get underneath green, so it could lift here, but I'm not taking that trade. Maybe I should have. But there's no trap here. These closed clearly. It wasn't just a wick. It's a 3-bar setup. It's a B minus, right? It's got an algo. If you're aggressive, you can take every single one of those and do great. But you're gonna have a run of like occasionally taking like 7, 8 stops in a row. But across the string of trades, you're gonna, most people do fine. So this one, the purple is not good enough for a sell, even though it was the dark or the bright pink ending. It's got to be an actual sell signal. So an orange bar or star. In this case, I didn't get it, and it pops right back up. You can see they're trying to put in momentum moves to the upside, right, and to bring this guy up. But note here, they're actually dropping, so I don't think this is going to work. Oh, it does. They get one more leg, so I guess you can get one more here. All right, this one is better, right? Bright pink, divergence. I wish it was orange or star. It is a red outline. That might be good enough. It's not a sign of aggression, but it's a sign that it's my own signal that indicates that we're trading up above where most of the volume was on this move and then closing below it. So usually what it means is that this is the kind of bar that I want to mark as an area I want to get short, but it might not be ready yet. So let's see if that plays out. Does it come back up there and set me up in that area? There we go. So see how this, it's kind of hard to see right now, but this orange bar came back up, tried to get back into this zone, right? I didn't draw that quite right. It should have, it should go all the way to the bottom of this, right there. So this wick, I'll show you. I don't know if it works, but this wick traded into the range of this red outline bar, and they rejected with a strong signal. If you are bearish, right, and everything here looks bearish, that is a decent trade for continuation of the downside, right? And in this case, it does get you your target. That is not good enough. It's just a triangle. This light pink is less. This light pink ending is usually a sign of bearishness, but this is an up bar. So similarly, you can mark this area as a potential trade zone in the future. We're probably going to bounce between them. Yep. So see how we go pink, 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 right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between there. So if I had gotten short here, first of all, I'm trying to take profits there. But if we come all the way back up, right? Once I see this pink, and that means the momentum is going to the upside, I'm just going to get out of the trade completely. Any of my runners that's left over, I'm out, right? If you wanted to, if you didn't take this one or you want to re-enter, this is technically a trade as well. But seeing this pink here at the very bottom suggests that this is going to be a pivot. See that? So this, I'm wondering if this becomes a good entry. Because that's a trap back in, the purple bar. There's no star in it, but it's got the pink background. And do you get 10 points? Yeah, you get 10 points. So it might not be A++, but I think it's good enough. Now you can see bears are getting momentum, right? So you certainly want to be getting out of your trade here. As soon as you see that bearish momentum, you know you're on the wrong side of things. And if you look at the lower indicators, look how this is falling, right? That would have been a reason not to take this trap back in. The orange is clearly falling here, but the green is rising, which is a higher, a faster time frame. So it basically means you might be able to grab a scalp, but you're not going to have, this is not the low, right, of like the session, but you might get a scalp out of it. But those need to be lined up. Like up here, when they're all in the same spot, all at the top, and they're like all the way up at the top, flat up at the top, stuck there, but the green one, the faster one's starting to fall, especially when these pink bars are really high. This could be the high of the session, right? This, when these are not at the bottom, right, they're falling and rising, they're going the opposite directions. They're not like flat-lined at the bottom. This one even here, they're in the opposite direction, not in the right spot. Even here, this is probably not the low of the session. because while they're all at the lows, they're not flatlined at the lows, right? It's just it's a trap. It's a good long. It's probably divergent. I bet. There. This could be a low of a session. See that? They're all at the bottom, right? So you might not know to buy this, but you'd expect that to hold. You can also do the trick I was showing you yesterday, which is to measure the DVP of this, mark the point of control, and then look for a long here. This one just missed. Oh, I didn't put it in the right spot. That's how you get this long. That's pretty powerful right there, right? You get the big move down, they move away from it, they come back. You could also take it, you can see it interacts with this one here, and this one gets close enough. Any of these would be good for longs. I'm gonna leave those arrows there because that's pretty awesome. Okay, so you could do the same thing at the high. I wasn't trading this early in the morning, but if I was doing this, look at where it's at the very high, right? So certainly if we come back into here, I want to be shorting out of that area. I'd prefer it to come all the way up here and trap it, but I don't know if it does. So we'll see. All right, so bearish, right? You don't take these low odds trades. This is where most people are making mistakes in the room. Is they get so, I mentioned this before, but you get so it might have been yesterday. I get all the days mixed up. You get so used to taking these trades where it's like, okay, I trap back in, I got a star, that should be a long. Well, I've got this pink background to tell me no, bears are in control. We are going lower, right? And even though these look like they're going to the bottom, they're still dropping. Even the short time frame one is still dropping. This one just came off of a very strong low, a very strong drop, and of course the easiest thing to do is to measure volume over the last three. So here is this volume down, right? Then volume up. 1, 2, right? So we didn't quite break that over yet, but once we've broken over that and put in more down volume, you definitely don't want to be fighting this move. If you didn't have this algo that prints the background, the increasing momentum algo that I wrote, you might take this trade, but there is no purple bar here and there's no purple bar here, so you shouldn't be. But like I said, people are making the mistake of just seeing this trap back in with a star and just immediately taking it. The diamond, like I said, is just an indication that it's had a lot of volume at the lows. But if you see, remember I said that this one could potentially create a trade in the future. And notice that we have not gotten into that zone yet, right? We got to get in there and trade it. So whoever controls this wins this section, right? So if we can't break that, so this is a better trade because we traded into that zone and they rejected out of it. Plus star followed by speed bar, which is these diamonds in the middle, is a very, very strong momentum trade as long as it's going in the right direction. You can see when it's going in the opposite direction of momentum, it does not work, right? Star, speed bar, fail. But watch, star, speed bar, beautiful, right? Because momentum is with you. See that? You got all the purple momentum with you. And so when I say momentum, I mean like these purple bars back here would be bearish, and these pink bars would be bullish. That's why I made those, is so I know when I can trade momentum. And then when momentum stops, which is often a good scalp opportunity. So here, now we just start getting underneath. See how we're now underneath the wave, the channel, and the waves are now putting in more volume than the last two. We no longer are we're no longer looking for longs, right? Only looking for retracements to the short side. We really wanted them to retrace into here, right? And that would have been this entry, which is the best entry, right? And then this was your second entry. Once you've gotten underneath the channel, you'll occasionally get these. This is a good one because it goes dark and then it comes right back in with algo signal on the very first purple bar, purple background. See that? That's an okay momentum trade. Momentum is to the downside, which is what purple says, right? And it's not like this momentum has been going on for a long time. This momentum is just starting compared to the previous bar, right? The hard part is sometimes this creates a bounce. It's not going to work 50% of the time, right? So if you're trying to qualify an Apex account like me, I can't take those right now, or if I do, I have to take them with really small size because the times they don't work, unless you're gonna hold for the big move, right? And you don't have a trailing drawdown. If you're playing cash and you can just do that, then it's gonna work fine because you're gonna get, when it works, you're gonna get like 50 points, right? But if you're just trying to get 10, 12 points over and over and over again, that is not your high odds trade. Even though it looks beautiful, like it looks easy, right? It's not consistent enough. First of all, it doesn't happen as often, and second of all, it stops you out a lot. But if you're going to take it, you need those conditions to be true, right? You need all of these things to be dropping or flatlined. You want orange bars staying under here that can't get back above the zero line. You want blue line that can't get above the zero line. You want purple background, specifically when you've got black for a while and then purple again. You need an algo signal, and you need to interact with either the midpoint or the low or the high of the radar. You need all those things, right? The other thing you could do is you could look for triangle retracements, so retracing into this zone. So if you knew you wanted to be short, you could technically short this. That's very, very aggressive. And it's not something I'm doing currently, but it's something I've done in the past. So, whoops. So, no, okay, now see how we got momentum ends, and then we get a signal to buy. This is a good entry, in my opinion. If you're new to the room, in Simon's room, don't take this yet, right? Because you're gonna get run over a lot. But if you know what you're doing and you can read or if you have like some other way to measure momentum, and you know the momentum to the downside's likely to exhaust here. For instance, it's approaching the red here, and then it gets divergent on the orange bars. See that? The blue line is getting divergent lows. These have been flatlined for a long time, right? And what I'd prefer is for the green not to be falling. It might be rising there. Let me see. It was 76. No, it is drop. It's slightly rising from 76.7 to 76.3, right? So it's just enough to maybe think it might work. But there is no pink bar here, and this is a huge drop. The other thing to think about that I was talking to another member about is how long it takes for these moves in one direction. When the market moves in one direction for a long time, like this, the initial responses are usually very weak, right? So you can look, this went from 518, let's say, and it didn't really bounce until this, which is like 6:30. So it took more than an hour to drop, let's see, 12,180 to 12,120, right? So it went down 60 points, and it took an hour to do that. When it does that, it's not just going to pop back up very often. It's usually going to have to go sideways for a bit. So with that in mind, you only want to fight that when you have enough room from your entry to the point that you are confident the market will at least reach before turning around, which is the bottom of this radar, right? See how once it hits the bottom of the radar, it often turns around? And then up here, even when it's bearish, once it's gotten underneath here, it's going to come back in here. So this one looks like a good entry, I guess, or I guess this one would be, but it's right on the line. There's zero risk reward here, right? Whereas down here, your risk is that it goes lower, right? So you can put your stop at the low. Your reward is back up to here, which is a good 10 points, right? So it comes back up, and I'm just out of my trade there. Like, yay, 10 points, cool, right? And this one keeps going, and that's great. And eventually I can trade more contracts and take advantage of those runners. But for now, I'm just getting it to here. I don't want to be trailed out here because I'm going to give back all those profits. See how it came back almost to my entry, right? So I'm gonna hold it here. I'm gonna get above that and get a close. I'll be out right there. So I'm in. Come on, chart value. In 98, let's say, just to give it a little move. Out 10, let's say. So 12 points. Good enough. As long as you've got good risk reward, right? And the risk is probably about 15 or 16 points. It's kind of looking a little bit big, but so it's at 98 to the low of the day, which was 80. So 18 points. A little bit on that wick is a little bit long, right? So again, it's not a 1-to-1 risk reward if you're exiting at 10 points or 12 points, right? But that's okay if you're getting 70% win rate. And that took, like I said, it's taken me a long time to accept, but it's just the way it works. Okay, so here, now look, we're making big, extended, expanding moves. And notice here, volume on this second down leg was divergent, right? This one was the biggest volume. We went lower and we couldn't put more sell volume in. That right there was enough reason for me to think this might be reversing, right? And in the past, I would have held runners. Just right now, I'm just have a different strategy. But, and notice that everything's at the lows here, right? So it's all like at 0 or below. So there's a good chance that this is actually the low of the session, right? So it's, if you're gonna hold runners, do it here. Buy this and hold it. Or if we go lower than this and it comes right back, hold runners on that one, right? Those are the kind of ones that when all these are all the way down, that's when these keep going. Like that's when you get these V's, right? When that's not happening, when they're all over the place like this, you're not gonna get a V reversal. You're gonna get boop, 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 right? Choppy, choppy, choppy. Okay, so here, notice here the orange is rising but below the 0 line, whereas these are falling already. These are almost exhausted, right? So if you, and then we've gotten above the radar, we had a pink bar followed by a star. Now this one said that there was a ton of volume down here, right? This has a lot more volume than at the top. So the volume is on the downside, right? So a bunch of people are fighting this. So you have to ask yourself, are they trapping themselves, right? Well, I would say that these guys were clearly trapped when we went lower, but and when they got trapped when we got above them. They were clearly trapped. But the fact that we're putting in a lot of volume to release them, and you can see the VPOC, most of the volume, is right there, right? So is it ideal? No, but it is valid. It's still an A+ trap back in entry to a power bar, an apex trap, and it works a lot, right? 70+% of the time it's going to get to this other blue line. I will, like, you could just, if I would have been up at 5 in the morning, like, and I took this and this, like, I'm already up 24 points. And if I took that with two NQ contracts, right, at $20 per point, I'm up over like almost a $500 day. That's a good day, right? And with my Apex Trader accounts, I only need to make like $3,000, to qualify those. So like, yeah, day well done. Go back to bed, right? There's no reason to keep pushing. But if you did, this is technically an entry. Purple bar, star. Notice we tested underneath the voodoo range and popped back up on it. And then you could take this last divergent low, way to the low, and you'd see that the VPOC is way down here, right? So now that's your one reason for being cautious here. It means I'd prefer to get long on a test of that. But but if I'm shorting, that's as far as I expect the market to go before I get a reaction. But this is about a 50% retrace. And if this is going to get bullish, this is usually how it works, right? It comes all the way back to the side of the radar, bounces off the back of the radar, and goes higher. So if you have reason to think it's bullish. Now the one thing I don't like about this, notice how this line, this shorter one, is falling right here, which means that this might be a choppy entry. So if you wanted to, it's also not a green background. The outline, it's not green like this, see? So even though this is a really big dip, it didn't dip outside of the value area. Now it does work, which is cool. That's your target right there. So it's valid and it works. And interestingly, it trapped back into this. So that, even though this isn't a power bar, right, it doesn't have this little flag on it, the fact that it's green and we traded below it and came back above it. And it was also a previous VPOC because it's got this green line on it. So we knew from back here, we said that if we got these three, that we'd take it. Well, that level is still valid. So when we come back into it and we print a star, that's a good entry still. Even though we traded under it, that's still a decent entry for like a head and shoulders kind of setup, right? But the problem is that it's often going to trap back in because now we have a magnet down here. So still valid for a scalp. Not necessarily the bottom of the session because these do not line up, right? So hopefully that makes sense. It really depends on, you have to ask yourself before you even decide on, like before you even trade and when you're building your trading plan, when you decide what trades am I going to take, what setups do I need to see before I get into the market, you need to decide what your goal is. You know, if your goal is to make $400 to $500 a day, like you can just do this, right? Like just scalp 10 to 12 points, get 2 or 3 setups, and if you give back more than one, if you give back a stop, just be done with the day. You know, you got you got your $400, right? If you got 3 of these, you're up 600, and you give back 400, give back 200, just be done, right? Done with the day. You did good for that day. Some days you're just gonna like crush it, and most other days you're gonna make a decent amount, and then the days you lose, you know, you gotta have your limits, right? And exit when you're done, when your system isn't working, or when you're not working the system, you're not trading a process. But you need to decide what are my goals? Are my goals to get in at the bottom of the day and trade it all the way to the other side because you think that like this is the bottom of the market and you're trading on a higher time frame? Well, then you're gonna have a lot more work to do figuring out your levels and stuff like that. You can use like other tools that I've provided, that Simon's provided, to do that. Like, you know, we said here, this was like one of the primary entry points on the 80 tick because this has gone sideways. We haven't had any purple bearish reaction here for a while, and this is the first valid entry on the 80 tick. So most likely that is the low. The low here, back here, this one, this is probably the low of the day, right? I don't know if it's gonna be the next session, but for this Globex session, that's probably the low until the open of the market, right? So if you bought this and you put your stop down here, and your idea is just, I want to be long in case we go break the highs of yesterday or something, that's your entry. And you just get in there, you put your stop in, and you go back to bed, right? Put your target in, and you're done. And it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're free to go to the beach or whatever. But that's not how I trade. I want to get 30 points, 40 points, 50 points a day, and be consistent that way. I don't want to have to wait for this. When I get it, it's great, but I'm usually just taking the 10 points and being fine with it because I can get, while the guy who trades this for the 200-point move, right, they have to hold through all these pullbacks. I have a really hard time seeing these signals telling me to get short and holding that long, trusting that this higher time frame is going to hold, because as you size up, like it's one thing to give back like $40 on like a $400 win. It's a whole nother story to give back $4 grand on a $40,000 win, right? It's really hard to trade this with big size for me, really hard. So, all right, even in sim, it's just psychologically difficult. Okay, so we said here, purple bar star, decent scalp, right? Not perfect for the bull of the day. This is it's really close to a trap. It doesn't quite trap back in, so technically not valid, but it's almost good enough, right? It does touch this level again, and it's got a star and a green bar. I'd probably go ahead and take that. It's close enough. I don't know if it works. Oh, and then these, I don't like that orange is falling. That's not great. This one did get under green, but then it got over green, so it looks like it's expanding. We've got consolidation. It might not work. That's probably not an A+ setup. It does work. Yeah, it's valid. It's just not perfect. But yeah, you get a nice scalp there. I get my 12 points, right? Now look, we got above this one. So if I still wanted to keep trading, now it's 7:40 in the morning, right? An hour before open is like one of the most dangerous times to trade, especially when there is economic news, right? But here we had an apex here, designated by these flags with the red extension lines. We traded beyond it and then came back. Now we have to close below it. This might not have quite qualified. But had it closed below it, then what I'm looking for is a pink bar before it or a pink background before it. This one had the pink bar before the apex, so it's okay. I don't know if that quite got there. Let's say it did and see what happens. Just barely gets me my 10 points. Okay. Kind of makes sense since this orange is now starting to climb. And notice how this orange can't get underneath the 0 line. It's a sign that bulls are starting to be in control, right? Here, they develop momentum. See how this has got the pink behind it? It's green with a star. It's a good, you want to get out of your shorts here as soon as you see that pink, right? It means you're not going to go and break this low. Might you chop around here? Yeah, sure, but you're not going to go down very low. But down here, you can see that this is setting up for a potential long if you're bullish because this is down here, but they're not in the right spot. So it's not the low of the day either, right? You're just in the middle of the radar. So this is just a do nothing for me right now. Even though it probably goes higher, it's not going to go 10 points 75% of the time. Okay, here we trade above this apex and come back down with, but there's no, I'll go here other than the red outline. That's not an orange bar. And there's no pink bar here, but there's a pink background here, and there's a red vertical line here. So if I was trading aggressively, I could take it, but with my current rules, I'm not taking it. It does give you 10 points. Okay, back to the middle of the radar. We're just getting out of the trade if we want. This one doesn't break the apex, that's nothing. This one doesn't break the apex, that's nothing. Now it's just chopping. See that? Chop, 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 chop. Don't fuck with it. If you were short, you're getting out here. They're trying to trap traders, but there's nowhere to go. They might push it. Oops. They're having a lot of trouble getting through this zone where those trap traders were. Remember that was that out of place pink bar? And you can see that they trapped them right here. So star followed by an orange or green bar in the opposite direction is a sign of momentum going in the opposite direction, but this bar is not purple, so in the background, sorry, is not purple. And we've been traveling up, not down, right? And these are not all at the high. So I'm not shorting this personally because it just doesn't go anywhere. Just chop, 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 chop. Okay, so here is the apex, right, with the little flag and the extension line. We traded above the apex, came back down, printed a star. There's a pink bar behind this one. That's good enough for an entry for me all day, as long as this is up at the high and these are at least falling. This is going really flat, so it may go nowhere, right? And you can see that these are trying to rotate. You need some rotation for these to work. If this chop is the most dangerous time to trade this mean reversion strategy. I'll be completely honest. If you want to know, okay, second most dangerous. The most dangerous time to trade mean reversion is when it's doing this, right? Which is why I have it colored purple and pink. It means like momentum's in the market, wait till this ends before you even think about shorting, right? So don't short this, but you can short this. The other time when it's really dangerous to trade mean reversion is when you are not rotating. We are just stuck in a zone. Unless you're going to buy this and sell this, you know, that's not, I don't trade that small of an area, but I can't buy here or sell here, you know. But technically that was right there. That is a valid entry. Let's see if it works. Yeah, works. So, I mean, you know, just because it's dangerous doesn't mean it's not going to work. It works literally 75% of the time. But the 30% of the time when it doesn't work is when the market's going in one direction or when it's choppy. So if you just stop trading this one and you stop like shorting these, right? Oh my God, like life just gets so much easier. So, okay, we got underneath this line, right? Came back, we got a purple line, purple bar, a purple background, right? And then that purple background stopped and we got the algo signal. All of these are now at the bottom. I don't love that the orange is dropping, but that's a very high time frame, right? So it doesn't mean it's not going to work, right? And then the question is, are we rotating? Well, the orange is, I'd say, not rotating. We're not getting beyond these greens. So if you wanted a reason to skip it, that's it. But technically, oh, and then there's a purple background. There's no purple bar here, and then we can go back here and we see there is a purple bar here on the trap back in. At least 2 bars from the apex, there's a purple bar, which again is where buyers are pulling their orders. And so it's an area that's relatively easy to trade through in the future. So let's see if this one works. Did we get 10 points? Like I said, this one was a little iffy with the indicators in the bottom. We got 10 points. Cool. So that one worked. So now see how this turns purple in the background? So if you started to pick up on the fact that this is starting to look a little bit bearish, right? This is my first sign that we might have a bearish move coming. Notice this is still acting as resistance, right? So all of these are good shorts on a higher time frame, and that's all based on this earlier algo, right? So what I said, I designed this one, these background here when they're in the wrong place. So when the pink bars
are at the highs and they stop, decent short opportunity. When the pink bars come at the bottom, what it's suggesting is that buyers are putting in momentum here. Well, if we can trap him, right, which is why I marked that area, he's putting all his eggs in this basket at the low. So once we trade under it, not yet, right there. Once we've gotten under it, and then we reject it, which happens right there, I said, that is the momentum entry, right? It's purple in the background, star followed by speed bar at location, right? You get the momentum entry, beautiful trade. It doesn't just stop, look at that, I mean, it's beautiful, right? It doesn't just stop working, though. That location is gonna, it's still got trap longs. So when we come back up there and you get more signs of aggression, right? Pink, ending, vertical line, like anything, all of these algos are basically all saying the same thing. It's just different ways to measure aggression. This one, this algo, right? All of those are saying shorts are getting active here and aggressively. There's again, and all of those are decent scalps. Do they all work? No, they're not all going to give you 10 points. But like, you know, if I wait for the trap back in, where I develop this one was a trap in and of itself, but once I get that flag in the extension, if I break above it and I come back down through it with an algo signal, that is working literally 75% almost 74, I think it was, percent of the time to get 10 to 12 points. Sometimes, I mean, look at this, like you're getting in, you're confirmed the stop order in at 64.50, let's say, if you want to just give it a little space, you're getting potentially 30 points, right? That's a good trade. I'll literally just take 12 and be happy with that. If you're trading bigger, let the runners go, you know. But if I got the location, I guess it's probably a good place to hold runners. But like, I'll literally take every single one of those. And I only need literally three of those a day and I'm done. Unfortunately, this was right at the open, so I did not personally trade that. I wish I would have, but my rules say I can't trade the first 15 minutes. And what was really frustrating is it set up twice more. Look, it sets up here, then another trap back in. So see this line, right? This gets broken, comes back in with a star. Now we did not have a purple bar here, but we had the purple background. And this purple bar, again, was 2 from the bottom. That's a long. Does it get 10 points? That's all it needs. 46.50, 61. It's good. Okay. Sign of momentum. Right? And yeah, so if we get back into that area, it's probably a good short. I don't have a reason to get short right there, but okay. So now, once again, we have to consider like some of us can just look at this and see that the neutral to bullish scenario has changed, right? But if you can't see that, like look at your metrics, right? Measure the cumulative volume. Well, this previous volume was lower than this one, right? That was a divergent volume. That gave us a pretty good scalp. This one was our next highest volume. We have clearly broken above that here, right? So we have more volume going into the lows than we did coming off the highs. These guys were aggressively shorting it at location, and we have more volume coming in. Do we want to fight that? Like, I don't, personally, right? The one reason you might want to fight it is if you thought this was the low of the day. Right? If you had a location here for one reason or another, and you're like, I'm going to stand my ground and set my campaign here. I'm going to buy this, and if it goes a little lower, I'm going to buy a little more. Like, if you want to trade like that, you can. That's not my strategy, right? But that is the only way I'd ever get involved here, because that volume build at the end, it does not mean I'm not going to get my 10 points, but again, the 30% of the time that this doesn't work is when you're working against momentum. And you can see that momentum was active. Sell momentum was active as long as this purple is going. The momentum ended and they kept selling. So guess what that means? I'm gonna have to get above this, where they stopped being like strong. I'm gonna have to get back up here to start to challenge some of these stronger sellers. And yeah, so I doubt this works. But I would personally wait for a better setup here. Yeah, just that's actually much better. so the first one you don't like. I don't like. It's too fast, too quick. Now they put in an aggressive seller. See all this volume? Huge volume, speed bar, you know, they absorbed these buyers, and buyers just attacked it again. So it's like, here it's like, yeah, there's no way this is going to work. Now all of a sudden it's looking like buyers are actually not giving up. So if you want to take this one, It's risky, but that's really that is way better. And again, it's because everyone else sees this too, yet buyers aren't giving up, right? I didn't personally take it, but you could. It probably works. Yeah. Nothing there. Just no algo signal. Okay, there's the next algo signal. So green with the green background. It's hard to tell because there's here. Let me get. This is at that same exact level again. Same reason we got long here, here, and here. Right? It's still the same level, and it's based on this rundown where all this volume build was. As long as we're getting the aggressive buyers reacting to that, right? This one, that level is going to be good. Now, notice here it did technically reach it. Oh, is that the one? Well, hold on. No, that's this one. So that one, you know, if you it did technically have a location, right? So if you really thought this was bullish, that would be a reason to buy this, because you're like, on a higher time frame, I have a location and a reason to get long. Well, here you get it again, right? But in this case, I like this one a lot better than this one, personally, because here it looked like there was lots of momentum going down, and I felt like they needed to get above this. Well, they did, right? They broke some of those sellers, and if it was bearish, what you'd see is this purple continuing down as they break down. Now, instead, you're getting a higher low. They tried to get momentum, and it stopped, and now you've absorbed it, which is what that green says, and it's at that same location again, right? So that probably lifts. Yeah. Yeah. I missed that. Because, again, I don't trade the first 15 minutes. It's just a rule that I've developed because I've had so many days where I tilt the fuck out of myself because I take 3 stops in the first fucking 15 minutes, and then I got the entire day where I just can't quit, right? And sometimes it's just going so fast and there's just so much volume going in that sometimes these, the algos usually still work, but I have the sense that they're not going to work quite as often as they do later in the day. So I just skipped it, which takes some practice, honestly. Skipping trades is really hard, right? And then watching it go without you is really tough. Cause that can tilt you too, right? So you have to decide what's harder, missing the trade or getting stopped over and over again. This is a short, right? So take a look at this. This move here, right, moved from, it started down here at the bottom of the radar at like 15, let's say, 115, went all the way up to, let's say, 210, right? So almost 100 points. That occurred in a matter of 5 minutes, right? When we look at what the NQ does normally, like when things are balanced, 100 points is way more than that. Right now, the Voodoo range level is 70, right? And I've got it marked off here, but even if you don't look at the actual levels and you just know that 70 is a natural move, even when there's momentum, that once you've gotten 70 points from one end to the other, you're probably going to get some kind of a retracement. Doesn't mean you're going to get the lows, right? But you might get a 50% or a 30% retracement, and there's a good chance I'm going to get my 10 points, right? So once I see this, hard to see. Oh, plus it's at this location that I identified yesterday. 12209 was the location that I identified in the higher time frame because of this VPOC of the wave to the low, right? I said if we get back there and they defend it, we can short. Defend it, we can short. And these just keep working until they stop working. So I'm not going to skip, I'm not going to skip this just because we've already taken a trade there. I'll keep hitting it until it fails, right? So there's a pink bar, so there's a 3-bar combo. It's way above the radar. And my thinking on this, again, just after the 15 minutes, is I'm getting in at 200. I can easily make 10 points, even if we only go back to here and it keeps going bullish, right? It'd be very natural to come back to test that radar. In this case, it went a lot farther than that, right? I did take the trade. I took my profits as we closed this one, and then I got out of the rest of it as it came back because I got a little nervous, right? And I was looking at this area here, and I knew it was acting as resistance over and over again. And the way I was seeing it is we tested above this level, and we rejected it, and so it should have been going lower, right? And so I was right to be bearish, but when I saw this, when again it wasn't closed yet, so when it's
when it's live, what you see is a bullish bar developing here. And so what I saw here, if you look, it's kind of hard to see because I know it closes bearish. And so it looks like it's obviously going lower. And once it closed, it was obvious that I made the wrong choice. But if you look at this was like right off the level. And what I saw was an attempt at the Buddha range level, a rejection, and then they immediately popped back up into this VPOC. And I looked over here and I'm like, oh fuck, you know, like we're probably, if anything, gonna test below that and just rock it. And then we got this pink background here, which is a sign of bullish momentum. And I just froze up. The problem that what I didn't see is that this pink area here is at the bottom of the radar. See that? And so again, it's in the same location, which we knew was going to be support and resistance. And so they are confirming that support and resistance is right here. So whoever gets, if we get it below that or get above it, whoever owns that is going to control price. And you can see they reject out of it right here. I did not get an algo here, unfortunately, right? And I wouldn't have shorted it anyway because it's pink in the background, which is weird, but that's just the way it worked out. It's dropping, yet buyers are in control. But this is the open, you know. Volume is weird. Just looking at volume and volume change and bullish, people were doing, I can't see the delta right now, but people were doing a lot of volume as it every time it tried to hop up, they were absorbing this. And so I was pretty confident here that whenever we did find a low that was going to hop back up here, and I didn't have any reason to get short here, even though the location looked like a good short. The algo. So this is another one of those examples where, yes, I missed this one, but think of all the other spots I could have shorted, or like all along here where I could have long just because I thought it was going to go up, but the algo told me not to, and I didn't, right? So here we do have purple bar, green bar at the bottom of the channel. So normally this is like okay trade, like a B trade. These two are at the bottom, but look how orange is falling, and it's falling below the red. That is a big red flag. In addition, this drop here, if we measure it, has not, oh, I'm wrong. Did it reach the 61.8? I didn't think it did. It did. Okay, it reached the 61.8. This is an okay, it's an okay buy. It's an okay buy. I did not take it. I need to drop back in or some other high-rise trade. Now, the other thing we can do here is we can measure the DVP again. And we can say that a location that would be good to get long, here's why I didn't take it. This pink line is where you really want to be getting long if there's an algo signal there. We are approaching it and we haven't tested it yet. Generally, it's a bad idea to get involved right before we get it. So that did not test it. We're probably going to trap back in, right? Right there. That's a much better buy. See how we've interacted with this pink line? Right? And then we get an algo signal. This is better than this. We still get purple bar followed by algo, which is good. It means people were pulling their buy orders and then suddenly decided to buy in the same exact location. That's not an accident, right? You're going to get 12 points often here. Now, the problem with this is that we are below all of these key zones, so our target needs to be there, which is what we did. We got out. And see, it doesn't look that hard once you have a system, right? I know that like it looks kind of obvious because it looks like I might be like picking out just the ones that worked. I'm not. We haven't had a whole lot of stops, but I'm showing you how with very, very, very clear, concise rules that stay consistent, you can be right a lot, right? What people don't like is that you miss this, right? And you might miss this. But these have paid me well. These have paid me well, right? I don't need all of this. You don't need to have every trade. You just need to have something that's consistent enough that you trust, right? Okay, nothing here because there's no purple bar and there's no red. There's no apexes to break. The closest one is way up here. I really don't want to get short unless we get back up here again. The only reason to get short here is this location and the fact that we're rejecting off of it with an algo. That is a different style of trading, right? It's something that I have done. I'm just not doing it currently with these evaluations because it can take like 4 tries to get this right. And I will blow up the account if I trade at the size I'm trading and do that, right? So it probably works. I get 10 points. You get 10 points. Okay, this is a nice little trap. Look at how here we got the star down, and then immediately comes back with star up at this location again. Gotta take that, right? And then this one's also got a diamond, so it's a speed bar, so star speed bar. It also had purple on the way down, and then it stopped. All sorts of reasons to take that long. Oh, is that our first? Nope, didn't stop. I thought it would stop. It actually re-triggers here. It comes back in. It doesn't quite stop you out, and it triggers to add. So you could add there, and you get paid, right? And again, is it hard to not take this one and wait for this or this? Yeah, it is hard. But at this point, my morning, I mean, it's not even 9 o'clock, and my morning was going pretty well, right? So here we had pink bar, star. We got to this voodoo range level, and I should have taken this trade, but I did not. I like it, but I did not have a trap back in. I wanted to see it trade up here and then reject. But the thing is we had the voodoo range level here. I also did not like that this rejected area. We just traded above it, and now we're trying to break back into it. It looked too risky to short this to me. But, yeah, that's, like I said, if I remember right, it actually worked. And I think Simon took it. Yeah. Yep. So again, but see how choppy it is, right? What I wanted is for this to come up here, right? And then I wanted to get short for the big slip down. I didn't want to trade in this choppiness, but you can see that these were not lining up. This was rising, these were falling, right? This was not, well, I guess it was rotating here, and this was okay. It's just not divergent, but this is looking like it's a scalp more than anything. Our next apex is down here. We did not reach it, right? No reason to get long here. Doesn't mean it doesn't go higher, just not for me. That's someone else's trade, you know? Okay, we broke this apex. I took this trade. Note that this apex had a pink bar before it. That's good enough. This is actually a purple bar itself and a speed bar, so is an entry short. Is this the one that stopped? Eventually one stopped. That one worked. I did take stops today. Nothing there. There. This might be the one that stopped. Nope, it just didn't. Okay, this one did not reach the top. I should have taken this and I didn't. I did not take that, and I probably should have. Okay, we need to get under this apex here, this flag with the line, for me to get long, so I skipped this. It's a 3-bar combo. It's in the right location on the radar, but I don't like getting long when I've got liquidity sitting below. See all these green lines? Those are liquidity pockets, right, from previous swings. And I'm not going to fuck around with that. Plus, if you look here, we tested above this zone that we knew was important twice and clearly rejected it. So at this point, and then these are also not lining up, right? So at this point, there's no reason to think this is the low. It could be a good scalp, but it almost looks like we're staying inside the range of the radar here. So it's like chances that this is going to go way higher are not great, but it works. It's a valid trade. It's just I'm not being that liberal about it. Not taking those. So this trap back in. It got a red bar, but no algo. Probably should have taken it, but it didn't give me what I wanted, so I missed it. And that one worked, right? So you can see, like, I just personally skipped 2 trades that could have ended my day right there with, like, barely any. I would add, like, a 90% win rate, which I've done. I mean, I've shared it. It happens, right? But that was a good trade, and I skipped it because I wanted a star or an orange bar. But I think since this one was an orange bar, and this one was pink, and this has got the red background and all that, it's good enough. And especially when I see that it's clearly neutral, right? We're not fighting momentum here. Even though this is kind of rising, it's good enough for a scalp, I think. Okay, here's the apex. We traded below it, came back with a star, purple bar 2 bars before that one, purple bar 2 bars before that one. No reason not to take this trade. Okay. Dink, 10 points. Okay, now all of a sudden we see that bears are entering, right? It's getting, there's momentum coming in. I could see people making the mistake of taking this. This was at that same exact level, right? This just indicates high volume. There's no actual, it's a green background or green outline, but no green inside.
And if you look here, we're getting once again more volume than the previous down wave, and we've got momentum in the market. So this is usually a good one to avoid the first or maybe even the second, even though it's trapping back into a previous bar. I think I actually took that on accident, but I was just a little bit hyper focused on trying to get a trade, and I shouldn't have. I know I took a trade somewhere near that I shouldn't have. This one goes back to this level that we liked, right, from way back when. It has not failed yet, and that's a green bar. It's got a pink background. Look how everything is flat on the floor, and we have at least 10 points back to the radar. Really aggressive trade, it usually works, and it does. It works often enough for me to continue to take it. Let's put it that way. Okay, there's no apex here. See how there's no line here? Even if there was, we didn't quite reach it, right? So that's not good enough for a sell. You can see it does not work. Simon suggested everyone not take that. I know a couple people went ahead and took it. This is better, right? We have this trade above it now, but there's no flag, there's no line. I didn't take it, but this is a momentum trade down. Star, diamond, down. But there's no purple in the background, so I skipped it. And it ends up stopping, so I'm kind of glad I did. Suddenly, bulls are doing the same thing. See how they were just getting a little bit of volume? Now they're getting a ton of volume. Makes sense just to stop fighting this until you see momentum disappear, which is right there. When it doesn't happen right away, when you get another bar up and then it goes down, I now need to see this break, personally. But the one good thing about this is that we had an apex here that got broken and it came back in with an orange bar. So I probably should have taken it, right, just to be consistent, but I did not because of the pink disappearing one bar early. And I've learned that if you can't get volume below this, it just doesn't go. See how, especially the short side. It's like, it tries, but it's not ready. And it's going to do it again. See that? So now you got this. It's saying, this arrow is saying everyone's buying, right? And the pink in the background. Now, I took a phone call, and I missed this. But this is a great trade. Look, it's an apex here. Pink bar, orange bar, everything about, there's divergence. Everything, there's red background. And it used to be pink, and now it's not. Everything about this is perfect. Right? That is a great trade here. And you can even add to it here, because that's confirming it. Now, the fact that we can't get it beyond this midpoint is a concern. And when you see this pink bar coming back up, it's probably a good time to exit the trade, right? So this was a really good setup that just didn't work. It just started to chop. And so you could get out break even here if you were smart, right? I was away from the keyboard, so I just missed this. Nothing really there. Needs to break that and come back. Okay, there we go. So broke the apex. Here's the apex, the red line. Broke above it. Comes back in with a star and a speed bar. There's no pink here, but we have the pink background. The problem is the pink background continued, see that, for this entry. So I did not take it. It does work. I just didn't take it. This one's too high. It needs to be down here for me to be interested in it. Okay, the apex is up here, right? So this is a lower odds trade because it's underneath the apex. There is stop order sitting up here, and the likelihood is we're going to come back up there and spike. It just didn't happen right away. So again, you can see there were many opportunities that I missed. Okay, this broke, and then we printed multiple bars before trying to fight it. And look how this close happened above this bar. This is not an entry, even though it's a star. No entry. Plus, there's no pink bar here, and no pink bar here, and these aren't pink. So, not an entry. If anything, this is a long, because it's star, diamond. And you can see here that we were not all stuck at the top. Not overbought down here. If anything, it's got room to move, right? And it got oversold. See that? How it almost got to red down here? So this is a better long on the bigger picture than this is a short. It's not the long for me, but this is better than this based on the higher time frame. Which is this is like higher time. The orange here are higher time frame momentums. Kind of like a stochastic. Okay, so we had pink that immediately went away and got a star. And this is a decent trade, but there's no apex here, unfortunately. So it's not good enough for me to take, but it worked beautifully. Right? I'm just not taking those. It is a valid trade. Okay, the apex is down here, so the green line. I need to break that. Oh, you know what? I might have missed something. DVP. on the up. Ah, I missed it. So the point of control is up here. And so we had a star algo bar interact with that at that level and break below all this volume. This is definitely this star is definitely the star diamond is definitely a short. I didn't measure that in time. Darn, missed that one. Okay, so I said I want to get underneath this green line here. I do not want to take this yet, even though everything looks good. There's liquidity sitting below us. There, that one's better. Tested the green line, came right back and did the same. Like, think about this. Everyone bought. Everyone got stopped out. They then came right back in and bought again. The same, whatever algos are buying this too. That is a sign of strength, right? Will it always work? No, this one stopped, right? What sucked about this is it triggered again, right? And I took it again, thankfully, but many people didn't take this. They take this one and then they don't, because they take this one, and they quit. I didn't take this one because of the liquidity trap down here. They filled the liquidity trap. I got long. I got like 8 points. And then it came back and stopped me out and immediately came back in. And with the purple background over here, purple bar, triangle down, arrow down, everything said bearish, 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 bearish. And they popped it back up right away. You have to buy it. I have to. Because that works so often. Those power bar traps are so powerful. Okay, so here we just have pink bar star. The closest apex is way up here at the top. So this is like a B grade trade by itself. This one did not reach. Here's our level, right? This did not reach it, and there's no algo, so nothing to do there. This one's too high. You'd have to be really bullish to take this purple bar diamond, and you can see that this is trying to come up, and look how green is falling, and this is like not that bullish. It should be like way up here all the time, right? It's not super bullish here. That's just an orange bar all by itself. It did not break this power bar, so I'm not taking it. And that works beautifully, right? It's like triangle up orange bar works, just not 75% of the time, so I'm not taking it. Here's our apexes, right? We broke it, put in a triangle and a diamond. This one had a purple bar and a purple background. This one didn't, but this one did, so it's good enough. I did not take that. I should have. I was away from the keyboard for that one. Okay, we did not break this. So I'm skipping these, even though pink bar star gives you 10 points a lot. I'm not risking that right now. I will go back to trading that in the future. For now, it's been too choppy, and I need to qualify those accounts. Okay, so I need to only take the highest odd setup. Again, purple bar, green bar, no apex, no trade. Even though it's on my voodoo range level, I would have previously taken this, and I bet you it works, but it does not work 75% of the time. Look at that. It does work, right? And if you can trade it with smaller size, or if you can trade without a trailing drawdown, and it's okay to take a couple stops in a row, cool. These work. But I want the ones that work almost all the time, like this. So apexes getting broken, pink bar coming back in with an algo. That one stopped. You have to do it. You have to take it a second time. This if you take this one, you have to take this one, especially once they put in the triangle and you get the orange bar, which is so much more powerful than just the diamond. The diamonds by themselves are just right? I could do without them. They're not Simon's trade signal. It's just my own of a sign of that there's a bunch of volume going off there. And usually when that happens at a trap, it works. But sometimes you need another try, especially the short side. The orange ones work a ton of a lot, right? That one's, nope, it works. Your stop goes up here at the high, and it does not get tested. See that? But you can see why you can't just buy every purple bar star, because you buy that and get totally crushed. Right? This gets 10 points. Nothing here, just an algo, not enough, no setup really. Okay, now look, we stopped this out again. I realize I'm just repeating myself over and over again, but you can see that on these like choppy days like this, when you get all this, and all you like momentum traders are struggling, like we're just like sweeping up, right? Like every time this triggers, we're just like trade, stop, trade, stop, right? Like it works over, and look at that, right? All we have to do, put in an apex, wait for it to break, wait for it to come back with an algo signal. Not rocket science. Goes right through all these levels, right? Now look how far we got underneath the bars, right? We put in bearish momentum. The bearish momentum stopped 1 bar too early. I am not taking this long. Plus, look at how volume has gotten extreme, right? And this got flatlined. See that? This one got a little overextended, so it might work, but I'm going to wait for a trap. Okay, it does work. I'm not surprised. But look how this took like half an hour, right? Started at like 12:15, didn't end until 12:45. These usually continue when they take that long. In this case, it just got far enough away from the radar that you could have just scalped this back up. This short is better as a momentum trade than this long once that happens. I'm not taking those right now, but those are better than those. Okay, well, now here's the trade I will take. Apex, get stopped out, get an algo signal. I will take that pretty much anytime. Right? That one did not quite reach my target, and I gave back some profits. That's fine. This one, I need to break underneath this algo, or this apex, which it did, and it comes back. I need to take this trade, and I did not. Right? I did not take that. Probably would have made some of my money back here. But I skipped this. I got really spooked by this. What I should have seen, so what I was looking at was we put in this volume, which was divergent, which is usually bullish, right? Which is why I took this. But then we put in more volume here, and I'm like, we're going nowhere, right? Just like instinctually did not want to fight this. But look how, when it got overexhausted, it hasn't really done anything since that. See that? The orange on the higher time frame, it's literally just gone sideways here. It's going to pop. We just don't know when, right? And so you either take every one of these, or you wait for it to pop and then buy the pullback, right? So I need to take more of these and just get used to doing it. This one is a must trade, right? Underneath that, dark purple stops, comes right back with a star. Gotta take it. Boom, right? So yeah, you might have gotten paid here. Stopped there. That probably paid you, let's say that's a stop 2, right? So you'd have 1, 2 stops, 1 win, and then you've got mega win. So even when it's only 50% accurate, it still works really well. Notice here we have apex getting stopped out, coming back in. It's fine to take that, right? You might get stopped. If you do, you gotta re-enter right here. And again, this location here that we found before is still working. See that? Now, you would have had to have a little bit bigger stop to make this one work, but this one clearly worked. Right? So here there's no apex back here, but it was that level. But notice that this one at that level did not work. So once they stop working, I'm going to take it out. Okay? This one did not reach this level, unfortunately. We really wanted the long to get down here. And that would have been a reason not to take that. So here, there's no apex here, and it's pink. So it's at the it doesn't really make sense to buy this unless you think it's momentum. If it's a higher low and you think it's going higher, cool, buy it. But that's not my setup, right? I'd rather see this get stopped out and then come back and start. This I did buy, and it just stopped, right? Now I was wondering if there's any way to see that this wasn't going to work. And the one thing I do see is that this is dropping, right? This is not really rising. These are in the right spot. The pink is dropping too. And oh, I didn't see this. So we got overextended on the higher time frame here. So once I see that, I may want to cool off on that direction. That's interesting. Because that one got me. Okay, now I did not take this, but I wanted to. But I wanted to take this out first, so I missed this trade. Right? And then I should have taken this. It tested this, but it didn't break it, and I left it. I should have just taken it. I didn't. So I could have had a banner day, and instead I just had a good day. That was my last... No, it wasn't. I traded with you guys for a little bit. That was my last trade before we started the stream. You can see here we had that level, and I should have been buying this. This was a good location, identified earlier. We broke down underneath here. We got a purple bar and a purple background. We have a star here. Everything about this is good. And I skipped it. I'm not totally sure why, because that is a good long, but I did not take that. There's nothing to do here. There's nothing to do here. Nothing to do here. Chop, 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 chop. Now we need to break this or get to that level and print a star. That is a long. It stops out. I took it, right? Let's see. I think there was a stop I took with you guys, right? Because this is the one we missed. Where was the stop? No, I don't remember. Did we? No, so we skipped that. Oh, it was this. This was the stop. So I bought this, which is on process, right? This one is the one you really want, but I didn't. Oh, so it had a big volume build, but if I would have looked more closely, I would see that this down wave here was bigger than this one. So this one is divergent, making this buy better, right? Everything was falling, which I didn't like, right? Falling. Can't. But look at this divergence too. It's getting higher and higher and higher. Multiple bounces getting higher as these are making lower lows, right? And I get the location correct. The momentum has stopped and aggressive buyers are entering, right? Now, normally, if you can re-enter down here, it's a really good trade. It just took 2 tries here, right? I entered here. I put my stop right there. Got stopped out by literally 2 ticks, and then it came back in. Live with all of you guys, right? And now looking at this again, what makes the most sense is to put your stop like 2 ticks behind this, but I think it still hits you. So the only way to protect yourself against this kind of like gamesmanship bullshit is all this is, right? It's just people taking advantage at the end of the day, like illiquidity, is if you're going to buy this, which I think is fine, you also need to buy this. I'm pretty sure that's the only way to get around it. I don't see anything else here that I don't really like other than the fact that everything's just flat line down here. So you obviously need to get under this, but it did, it did everything I wanted it to do. And I don't see why this one didn't even have an algo on it, which is surprising that it still worked, but it may not matter when it's just like liquidity games here because this location is clearly good. Look at all these levels here. And every time in the past that we've hit these, we've gotten a reaction. Look. It's this little cluster here. It's been a long time, doesn't matter. Market remembers. I don't know how far I gotta go back. Right there. So this one, huge move. And now I don't know how far this goes back. Right here. This one, good move. This one, decent move, right? Like, it's a good location. Right? And like I said, it produced a wild, awesome squeeze. Now, the other way I guess I could have caught this is drawing the DVP to the low. Now look, initially the DVP was here, the low of the day was here, putting the VPOC at 12,115, and this did not reach it. But while it was quick, this technically made a new low. So this is our new one. And so really what we want is this level here. Right? So we're going to get rid of these. That is the level that we wanted to see an interaction on. We tested under it. We came right back at it. It just didn't trigger. The volume was just not quite right, probably because it was the end of the day. Right? We just had too many people closing positions here. And so it didn't look like a aggressive buyer. Literally, just everybody was aggressively entering and exiting at the same time. So on this, oops, we didn't have enough aggression up here. We did not, but we did trap sellers down here, right? So this might have been one of those situations where if I was watching the footprint, I might have gone ahead and made an exception if I was fast enough. But in my experience, I have not been fast enough. I just rely on the algo, right? Now, when I missed that, and I even said this could turn into a pretty big move, if it wasn't the end of the day, I might have noticed that this was this should have, if it's not going to go higher, this guy got above this apex and tried to turn around, and there's another apex right here. This is a really, really vulnerable spot for this guy. He aggressively attacked this apex when there's all this liquidity up here. So if you're gonna buy a dip, what you want to do is you see this work. You want to get someone trapped, and you want to identify the triangle. If you've got the algo, identify the triangle that occurred after the trap, and get long on a pullback right there. That is your momentum trade. I'm currently not trading that, but it works well as long as you're right about the direction, right? Getting the direction right is hard. Notice here, this is, even if this was an algo, it's not a good sell. First of all, because volume is screaming higher, right? Everything up is rising. Look at how orange is just starting to get cooking right above this red line. And the orange is above green for a bit, but it's definitely not overextended above red. And it's having a hard time staying below the 0 line. And then also the momentum ended, and yet they still pushed, right? So you really have to get under this guy before you'd consider shorting. So you can't short this even if it's an orange or a star. Normally when you see a star this high, it's very dangerous. And if you get under him, you can see a full reversal. But you can't just short it. You have to get under it. And they just don't. They just take off, right? They just squeeze into the end of the day. So this is your first valid short, but it's a 3-bar combo. It's not that great, but it is at the right location. See, this is that location we saw earlier in the day and overnight. So it makes sense to take this, except for the fact that volume is so heavy. And this is just like full outline to the top, right? But look at how exhausted this is now. So what I've been finding is I want to take the trap back into this rather than the very first one. See, that goes, and if it doesn't drop back in, I just stay safe. Because this first one, especially to the short side, just gets blundered a lot. It's busted a lot, right? Even though it's a pretty good setup, there's no star there either. But you'd think it's going to come back here, but it doesn't have to right away. Right? Same kind of thing here, but now we're above the level, right? So really what we want to see is go down, come back up, and then retrace. And they put 2 freaking stars here, and they still busted them. So buyers are just relentless here, like tripping over themselves to get long. We've now gotten back up to another level that was important in the past. And so if we got a star here, you could think about it, but not all it's pink. As long as it's pink, I'm not fucking touching it, right? The only thing you can do here is wait for a pullback and try to get long down here at like a blue range level, or see if they can bounce off this, right? Or you wait for them to get under one of these guys, trap them, and then get short on the pullback. That's the only way I'm getting involved here. So I hope this has been helpful, you guys. I'll try to keep doing these. I find them valuable. If you do, please let me know. But I find this has been valuable for me to review, and I've been trying to do this at least once a week. So if these are helpful, let me know. If you want to know more about the algo and the trading room we're in, you can either talk to me on Twitter, which is @BradBenTrader, or else the one who wrote the primary algo is Simon. This is my version of the algo. This is the easier to learn algo that Simon's using and the rest of the room is using. I've just built some more signals on top of it to keep me in line. But if you're in the room, right, in the Slack room with us, and you're part of the team, and you have this algo on your desktop, if you ask me, I can help you build any signal you want from this onto this. But unfortunately, all of these signals are based on the Trade and Perform signs. So these aren't going to work if you don't have the Trade and Perform algo on your desktop. It's just, they're not going to do anything because it'll refer to studies that you don't have, right? So now if you want to learn more about the algo, you can, or if you want to get a couple, like a 5-day pass to the room, you can talk to Simon. It's at tradeandperform.com with the letter N. So trade, letter N, and then the word perform @gmail.com. And tell him that, you know, you saw a video with Redben, that you want to learn more about the algo and see what we're doing. He'll give you a 5-day pass to the room. You can actually watch him trade. He's much better than I am. And watch his screen as he uses this basic algo to trade way more contracts than I ever dreamed of, and make a shit ton of money most days, and help all of us not get run over. And then if you're in the room, like I said, say hi, and yeah, if these are helpful to you, even if you're not interested in the room, you know, it's not, I'm not really marketing or anything. I just, you know, I find this stuff interesting, and if you guys want to learn more about it, cool. But even if you're not planning on being in the room, if you're finding it helpful to see how my thinking is about how I can objectively decide this is a setup I would take, this isn't a setup I would take, if that's helpful, let me know, because then I'll keep doing these. Otherwise, I'll just videotape them for myself. I'll work for the team. So, but yeah, if the public is enjoying this, even though you don't really have any interest in the room, I'd love to know that. So